Chapter 3452. Xion's suggestion wasn't wrong. At such a crucial moment, it was probably the wisest choice. However, Xion didn't know that Hui and Guzhen had also done the same in order to charge out of the encirclement of the many elemental-eating insects. Gee, Xiaohua laughed. Benefactor Xion, you see, this little monk will give it a plan to kill it. Let's see how many elemental-eating insects can run rampant in front of me. Oh, this little monk. While speaking, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the sword pouch. While waving the wishful rod, he opened his mouth and hit the sword pouch with a few sword qi. The sword pouch grew bigger and bigger under the sword qi. In particular, in the wishful rod, a dozen spirit-swallowing insects that were much smaller than the elemental-eating insects were also released by Xiaohua. Xiaohua's intention of releasing these insects was not to let them fight with the elemental-eating insects, but to let them do the business of fishing and lure the elemental-eating insects into the sword pouch. However, to Xiaohua's surprise, as soon as the spirit-swallowing insects landed in the air, all the elemental-eating insects calmed down. Not only did the elemental-eating insects on the body of the Transcendent's golden body stop devouring, but the elemental-eating insects that attacked Xiaohua also blankly floated there, as if they were stupid. Seeing such a situation, not to mention the elemental-eating insects, even Xion and Xiaohua were dumbfounded. Almost unable to believe it, Xiaohua inexplicably looked at Xion, and then the two of them read the confusion in each other's eyes. Just as Xiaohua withdrew his gaze, his heart suddenly moved, and he hurriedly raised his eyebrows at Xion. Unfortunately, Xiaohua had forgotten that his hair was gone. In fact, his eyebrows were also gone, but Hui and Xion did not mention it. At this time, Xiaohua's eyebrows could only tremble strangely. Fortunately, when Xion saw Xiaohua's face, she immediately understood and hurriedly nodded slightly, quietly put away the flying sword, and slipped into the passage. Seeing that Xion was so decisive, Xiaohua was also relieved. He did not dare to rashly put away his Transcendent's golden body, and only looked at the dozen spirit-swallowing insects. In fact, the dozen spirit-swallowing insects were not all spirit-swallowing insects. There were several mutated ones that sword cultivators failed to cultivate in the past. However, now these spirit-swallowing insects flew in the air, facing tens of thousands of elemental-eating insects, as if there were no insects. Yes, these spirit-swallowing bugs seemed to have been separated into yin and yang in the space. Xiaohua's eyes fell on the golden threads on the back of the spirit-swallowing bugs, and he suddenly realized something. Since the superpower centipede can become smart, the spirit-swallowing bugs won't be worse than the superpower centipede, right? Wang. At this moment, another wave of noise came from the depths of the stone wall. A silvery white ball flew out from the green ball. It was an elemental-eating insect that was 10 times larger than an ordinary elemental-eating insect. Could it be? This is the elemental-devouring insect king? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes, looking at the elemental-devouring insect, and guessed. Gee! The sound of sharp teeth biting glass came out from the energy-eating bug king's mouth. Instantly, the entire energy-eating bug king squirmed as if it had issued an order. At the same time, Xiaohua's Naiwen palace was also flickering with a golden light. Clearly, the essence-eating insect king's command had the effect of a soul stab. Xiaohua was slightly startled and looked at the elemental-eating insects. Out of Xiaohua's expectation, these elemental-devouring insects only moved half a foot forward and then stopped, as if they were afraid of Xiaohua's dozens of spirit-swallowing insects. Hum! The elemental-eating bug king's wings suddenly emitted a strong sound and pounced on the nearest elemental-eating bug. With a few crunching sounds, the elemental-eating bug was bitten into pieces by the elemental-eating bug king and swallowed into its stomach. The other elemental-eating bugs retreated in fear, but they didn't dare to attack the spirit-swallowing bugs. The elemental-eating bug king hovered in the air for a while and seemed to be helpless. It flapped its wings and rushed to the spirit-swallowing bugs alone. Good. Xiaohua praised in his heart. The wishful staff in his hand trembled slightly. He understood that as long as he killed the elemental-eating insect king, these elemental-eating insects would collapse and he would be able to safely pass through this dam passage with Xian Xin. Before Xiaohua could raise his wishful staff, more than a dozen spirit-swallowing bugs, which were much smaller than the elemental-devouring bugs, flew up in the air. Then, 9 of them flew up in groups of 3, while the others went to the left and right. They were divided into different levels and attacked the elemental-devouring bug king from the side. Is this still an insect? Xiaohua saw this and his eyes widened. An incredible feeling came from the bottom of his heart. The wishful staff in his hand stopped. He knew that if these dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs killed the elemental-eating bug king, these dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs would be the king of the entire elemental-eating bug king. If he forced the wishful staff, these spirit-swallowing bugs may not be able to convince the masses. Kacha, a series of chaotic noises came from midair, and Xiaohua became more and more dumbstruck. The elemental-eating bug king was huge and its teeth were sharp. Although there were more than a dozen spirit-swallowing bugs, they were obviously not its opponent. However, these dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs attacked the energy-eating bug king from all sides at the same time. Once the energy-eating bug king hurt a spirit-swallowing bug, this spirit-swallowing bug would immediately dodge, and another spirit-swallowing bug would take its place. Thus, the energy-eating bug king still maintained an impenetrable formation. Ordinary people would find it difficult to fight against 4 hands with 2 fists, let alone the spirit-swallowing bugs with sharp teeth. In just a few minutes, a long whisker of the elemental-eating bug king was bitten off by a spirit-swallowing bug. Kacha! The elemental-eating bug king issued an order again, and the nearby elemental-eating bugs began to squirm. The 3 spirit-swallowing bugs that were flying around the periphery immediately flew out of the battle group and swaggered around the elemental-eating bugs. Sure enough, the restless elemental-eating bugs immediately calmed down. Seeing this, these spirit-swallowing bugs hurriedly rushed into the battle group again. Haha, interesting. Xiaohua found it funny. He simply stopped taking back his transcendence golden body and watched the battle with a smile on his face. If this situation was seen by Ci Hui and Gu Zhen, wouldn't they be furious? The thousands of elemental-eating bugs that could devour relics and Buddha statues didn't want to fight at all. They just watched blankly on the wall. Once the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs succeeded, they immediately swarmed to attack. The elemental-eating bug king was at a loss. Obviously, it was not as agile as these spirit-swallowing bugs. It only chased after the spirit-swallowing bug in front of it and attacked, completely unaware that this spirit-swallowing bug had been replaced by 4 in a moment. Under the attacks of the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs, the body of the elemental-eating bug king began to shatter. Ka! The elemental-eating bug king opened its mouth to cry for help. This time, the elemental-eating bugs didn't have the slightest intention to move. At first, Xiaohua thought that the elemental-eating bug king couldn't command these elemental-eating bugs. But when he saw the elemental-eating bug king's cry and the green brilliance on the walls of the passage rising and falling from time to time, he suddenly realized that the elemental-eating bug king was activating the magic formation of the passage. The reason why the magic formation of the passage didn't attack like the elemental-eating bug king was that the magic formation couldn't distinguish whether the fight between the spirit-swallowing bugs and the elemental-eating bug king was a fight for the throne or an invasion. Now that he understood, Xiaohua felt a little lucky. If he joined in, he might not be able to kill the elemental-eating bug king with one blow, but those elemental-eating bugs would definitely attack him, and even the magic formation of the passage would be triggered. Wouldn't his advantage of releasing the spirit-swallowing bugs be exhausted? Seeing that its cry for help didn't work, the elemental-eating bug king became more terrified. It screamed and turned around, trying to escape from the siege of the spirit-swallowing bugs. What surprised Xiaohua even more happened. The dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs didn't deliberately block the escape of the elemental-eating bug king, but surrounded it and killed it at the same time. Seeing that there was always a chance to escape, the elemental-eating bug king only wanted to escape, but it neglected its attack. Then, after just a few dozen meters, half of its body was swallowed by the spirit-swallowing bugs. Buzz! Seeing that the elemental eating bug king was about to fall to the ground, the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs rushed up and instantly showed ferocious expressions. With a kacha-kacha sound, the spirit-swallowing bugs devoured the elemental eating bug king completely. Then these spirit-swallowing bugs spread their wings and flew back. They circled around Xiaohua's transcendence golden body several times, and then flew towards the thousands of elemental eating bugs. Damn it, are they greeting me? Xiaohua didn't dare to release the spirit-swallowing bugs before, not only because he was afraid that the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs couldn't defeat the thousands of elemental eating bugs, but also because he couldn't control them. Now, these spirit-swallowing bugs actually showed off in front of him. How could he not know that these spirit-swallowing bugs were really psychic? After cursing with a smile, he opened the sword pouch. As expected, the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs flew to different places. With their wings buzzing and mouths clanging, a spirit-swallowing bug led a team of elemental eating bugs into the sword pouch. Seeing the dozens of teams of elemental eating bugs flying into the sword pouch in a uniform manner, Xiaohua couldn't stop smiling. These are thousands of elemental eating bugs. As long as I take them out of the mysterious water palace, damn it, who dares to go against me? As long as I'm not happy, I'll release them. Not to mention devouring them, I'll scare you to death. When the elemental eating bugs in the passage completely disappeared, Xiaohua immediately put away the sword pouch. As expected, in a moment, dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs flew out again and swayed in front of Xiaohua. Good boys. Xiaohua put away his transcendence golden body. With a wave of his hand, he took out some spiritual herbs and handed them to the spirit-swallowing bugs. The dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs rushed forward and devoured the spiritual herbs in a few breaths. Chapter 3453. Go. If you're so obedient in the future, I'll treat you all the same. With that, Xiaohua waved his hand again and threw a lot of spiritual herbs into the sword pouch. The spirit-swallowing bugs danced in front of Xiaohua for a while before falling into the sword pouch. Haha, it's really interesting. These bugs are so fun. Xiaohua put away the sword pouch, looked at Xan who had disappeared in the distance, and ran forward in high spirits. When he saw Xan, it was already a while later. Xan, who had reached the end of the passage, was now urging the flying sword to attack the restriction formation of the passage. Moreover, there was already light leaking in from the passage. Seeing that Xiaohua was safe, Xan's face showed ecstasy at first, but then her pale golden face turned cold again. She asked faintly, "Little monk, you're really amazing. I tried my best to break through the formation again, but you easily got rid of tens of thousands of elemental devouring bugs. I really can't think of any ancient temple in the Pure Land world that has such a powerful monk like you." Xiaohua shrugged and said with a smile, "Since you don't know, don't think too much. The important thing is that you and I are both still alive. This seems to be the most important thing, right?" Xan put away the flying sword and pointed to the place where the light came in. "This is the exit of the passage. Don't you have a magic wand? Don't make me waste my energy." Well said, well said. Xiaohua smiled and took out the wishful steel staff from his sleeve. With a loud shout, he hit the light with the head of the staff. With a rumbling sound, like the sound of a wall collapsing, a 3-meter-long triangle appeared. Xiaohua and Xan entered the same corridor as Ci Hui and Guzhen, but as Sky Dragon said, one was the Palace of Eternal Life, and the other was the Palace of Mysterious Water. Unfortunately, Xiaohua and Xan did not know that they were not Ci Hui, and the Palace of Mysterious Water did not have ancient Buddha Tsili, so they did not have Ci Hui's perception and could only walk blindly in the corridor. Xiaohua was very self-aware. As soon as he entered the corridor, he said with a smile, "Xan, this little monk has always been directionally challenged. Not to mention inside the hall, even in the wilderness, I can't find my way. Therefore, I will leave the matter of finding the exit to Tanyu. This little monk will only stand guard behind Tanyu. Protector?" Xan glanced at Xiaohua. She seemed to have thought of something. She raised her head and looked at the incomparably huge tunnel. Frowning, she said, I wonder how Grandmaster Gu Zhen and fellow immortal Ci Hui are doing? Will they be able to obtain the ancient Buddha blessing? However, as she spoke, a trace of worry appeared on Xian's face. It was clear that the dangers in these places were beyond her expectations. If not for Xiaohua by her side, it was almost impossible for her to come out of the two passages, let alone reach this place. She wasn't sure about Gu Zhen's strength, but she knew about Ci Hui. If things went as she expected, the possibility of Ci Hui and Gu Zhen dying was very high. As if he knew what Xian was thinking, Xiaohua squeezed out a smile and comforted her. Tanyu, don't worry. Our Buddhist protectors all have their own secret techniques and divine abilities. Didn't you see? Earlier, this little monk relied on the golden Buddha statue to overcome the tribulation. Grandmaster Gu Zhen's Buddhist attainments are much higher than this little monk's. They'll definitely be able to arrive at the Darkwater Palace and obtain the ancient Buddha blessing. When he spoke up to this point, Xiaohua glanced at the passageways in the surroundings and intentionally changed the topic. Now that I think about it, Tanyu, the problem isn't whether they obtain the ancient Buddha streamers or not. The problem is whether there are ancient Buddha streamers at the place they went to, or in other words, whether there are any within the Darkwater Palace. If the contents of Mo Yuntong's book are nonsense, then they probably won't be able to find it even if they risk their lives. You're the one who's talking nonsense. Xian was anxious. Would I dare tell Grandmaster Gu Zhen if I wasn't confident? Not to mention that Mo Yuntong is. When she spoke up to hear, Xian seemed to have realized something, and she glanced at Xiaohua and said, Don't even think about Mo Yuntong's origins. Most of the dangers we encountered earlier were recorded in Mo Yuntong's book. I'm afraid she hasn't obtained the rest. If she hasn't obtained it, then how would she know that there are ancient Buddha blessings in the Darkwater Palace? Xiaohua retorted sarcastically, It seems that I haven't seen any traces of the ancient Buddha blessing even after waiting for so long. Don't tell me I can also write to Mo Yuntong that there are immortal artifacts here? Write if you want, as long as you're not afraid of karma. Xian smiled faintly. At this moment, the two of them had reached a fork in the road. Xian looked around for a moment and randomly chose a path, saying as she walked, It's good that we didn't find the ancient Buddha blessing. If we did, what would Ci Hui and Grandmaster Gu Zhen do? Oh, I understand. Little monk, you're also coveting the ancient Buddha blessing, aren't you? Xian looked at Xiaohua with a smile. Your greed isn't ordinary. I want that immortal artifact. Xiaohua raised his head and smiled like a little fox. Xian pouted, Don't even think about it, I want it too. But at this point, Xian's expression changed. Previously, Xiaohua hadn't revealed his strength, and he was with Ci Hui, so Xian didn't care about him. But now, Xian could see clearly that Xiaohua had endless means. How could she compare to him? If he wanted the immortal artifact, he might have a chance. In fact, Xian even thought of some bad things. What? Xiaohua saw the change in Xian's expression and said with a smile, Could it be that you also want the immortal artifact? Instead of looking for someone? Xian snorted coldly, I'm not someone who doesn't mean what I say. Moreover, I've already made my purpose very clear. Clap, clap. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said with a smile, Since that's the case, it's good. It would be impolite for this little monk to refuse this immortal artifact. I'm ashamed to accept it. Xian fiercely clenched her teeth. It would be a lie to say that she didn't covet the immortal artifact, but she also knew that it was wishful thinking to rely on her own strength to obtain the immortal artifact. Therefore, she only put searching for someone as her top priority and didn't even mention the immortal artifact in front of others. However, the human heart had always been like this. If she couldn't obtain it, others shouldn't be able to either. But if others could obtain it and she couldn't, it was inevitable that jealousy would arise in her heart. Xian might not be able to reach the level of jealousy of others, but clearly, she also felt uncomfortable in her heart. It was the same feeling as when Gu Zhen faced Ci Hui, the feeling of making a wedding dress for someone else. With Xian's thoughts, the atmosphere unconsciously became strange. Only the sound of light footsteps could be heard in the passageway. After walking for a while, seeing that XN was somewhat absent-minded, Xiaohua spoke again. "XN Yenyue, this profound water palace doesn't seem to be as simple as an ancient spell formation?" "Little monk, what do you mean?" XN shook her head and did her best to throw away these distracting thoughts as she asked. Xiaohua pointed at the tall passageway and explained, "If it's an ancient Taoist spell formation, there's no need to use such a tall passageway, right? It's too much of a waste of materials." "What are you trying to say? You might as well be more direct." XN snappily interrupted Xiaohua's words, but without waiting for Xiaohua to open his mouth again, XN suddenly thought of the white bones that she had seen in the spiritual grassland. Her brows wrinkled as she said, "You mean, this profound water palace is so big and many Taoist restrictions rely on the golden Buddha statues to resist. It seems to have something to do with diviners, right?" "Diviners?" XN's expression changed and her eyes rippled again. She stared at Xiaohua and asked again, "Little monk, you actually know about diviners?" Xiaohua smiled, raising his eyebrows without eyebrows. "Dong dong." At this moment, in the tunnel not far away, a huge battle puppet appeared out of nowhere. It was also covered in battle armor and held a spear in its hand. When it took a step, the entire tunnel shook as it walked over. "Diviners?" XN turned to look and was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. Xiaohua's eyes swept over. Although he was shocked, his reaction was different from XN's. "It's a puppet." "Puppet?" XN was stunned and immediately understood. She nodded and said, "That's right, it's a battle puppet of the Taoist sect." Then, XN's heart skipped a beat. Her gaze moved away from the battle puppet and looked at Xiaohua thoughtfully. Her gaze was meaningful. However, when XN saw the expression in Xiaohua's eyes, she was stunned again. That expression seemed very familiar. Yes, just a moment ago, when Xiaohua saw the spiritual grasses and the huge transmission array, his gaze was exactly the same as it was at that time. It was a kind of greed, a kind of eagerness. It was as if a pair of hands had reached out from his eyes and grabbed the huge battle puppet from afar. This battle puppet will be left to this little monk." Xiaohua reluctantly moved his gaze away from the battle puppet. He smacked his lips and swallowed the saliva in his mouth with difficulty. However, when he saw XN's gaze, he couldn't help but be stunned. Why are you looking at me?" "There's a flower on your face." XN said seriously, "In the future, you can change your name to Flower Monk." "Is that so?" Xiaohua listened to the sound of the battle puppet slowly walking over. There was no fear at all. He touched his face with his hand and smiled. "Let this little monk see what kind of flower it is. If it looks good, I'll give it to Sandalwood. This flower is only called a flower when worn on a girl's head. If it grows on the ground, it's not called a flower." "Bah!" XN spat softly. Suddenly, Xiaohua's heart trembled. However, right after that, Xiaohua shouted, "Almsgiver XN, hold the formation for this little monk so that this little monk can capture this battle avatar." Although Xiaohua emphasized the words benefactor and little monk, XN could still hear the weakness in Xiaohua's tone. Xiaohua raised his hand and held the wishful steel staff in his hand. He no longer avoided XN. His whole body flashed with golden light as he secretly urged his spiritual power. At the same time he shouted, "Chang, Chang, Chang." Chapter 3454. Seeing that Xiaohua's transcendence golden body was slowly being displayed, from a few dozen feet to a few dozen feet, and even to a few dozen feet, XN's face did not change much. However, when XN saw Xiaohua's staff growing thicker and thicker with Xiaohua's thoughts, she seemed to have thought of something, and her face turned pale. Xiaohua naturally did not know what XN was thinking. The staff swayed in midair and hit the stone wall. Xiaohua simply threw the staff and hit the stone wall. With a muffled bang, the stone wall was smashed in an instant. Xiaohua was very happy and shouted, "You brat, can you fight with me?" The battle avatar naturally wouldn't answer his question, But the viper-like spear had already answered Xiaohua's question. The spear was like lightning, and the tip of the spear was like a snake. The battle avatar actually waved its hand from over 10 zhang away, and the spear left its hand and directly pierced towards Xiaohua's heart. Now, Xiaohua was like a god. He was dozens of feet tall, and he had really pushed the Transcendence golden body to the extreme. Looking at the battle puppet of the same size and Exen, who was like an ant, an unparalleled lofty aspiration was born from the bottom of Xiaohua's heart. Fight! Xiaohua was not afraid. He waved the staff. It seemed to be light, but it hit the spear very cleverly. Pa! A very strange light sound was heard. The spear was hit by the staff. The spear was more flexible than a spirit snake, and the tail of the spear was slapped toward Xiaohua's left armpit. Xiaohua's heavenly staff technique was certainly familiar, but this change was really fast. Caught off guard, the spear hit Xiaohua all of a sudden. Boom! The power of the spear was beyond Xiaohua's expectations. It was shockingly powerful. Xiaohua instantly lost his balance, and his body, which was dozens of feet tall, fell towards the stone wall with a loud bang. Crash! The stone wall, which was flickering with blue light, was unable to support Xiaohua's Dharma body. It was like an ordinary wall, and everything within dozens of feet collapsed. The golden light around Xiaohua, who was lying on the wall, flickered rapidly. The place where the spear had just struck had already caved in. Moreover, in the surroundings of the caved-in, there were many cracks spreading out. As the golden light flickered, the cracks and caved-in were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. A bone-piercing pain came from Jin's body. Xiaohua couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He lay on the ground, almost unable to stand up. How can this puppet be so powerful? This was Xiaohua's first thought. Then, with a roar, Xiaohua was really angry. His figure did not wait for him to get up. The wishful staff in his hand waved again, and the nearby wall was in a mess. Xiaohua got up from the mess and waved the wishful staff towards the puppet that had already rushed over with its fists like a fighting machine. Boom! The wishful steel staff hit the arm of the war puppet as it wished, but the result was indeed not satisfactory. On the arm of the war puppet, a blue brilliance flashed and finally, it was quickly annihilated. A trace of cracks appeared on the arm of the war puppet. Xiaohua's wishful steel staff could not even break the arm of the war puppet. It was not as good as the previous Guzhen. Not only that, but in just a few breaths, the arm of the war puppet reappeared, and the cracks that had been hit were healing. Seeing this, Xiaohua was not surprised, but his eyes narrowed slightly. He was looking at the chest of the war puppet. If Xiaohua's expectations were correct, the body of the war puppet must be supported by the spirit stone. The power of Xiaohua's staff was only the effect of the spirit stone. Xiaohua's current plan was that as long as the spirit stone of the war puppet was exhausted, this war puppet would no longer be the war puppet that could break Xiaohua's golden body with a spear. The war puppet was just a huge puppet. Whether it was to kill it or even subdue it, wasn't it all under Xiaohua's control? Thinking about the words, Xiaohua, on the forehead of this huge war puppet, Xiaohua could not help but be excited. He unconsciously laughed strangely and said, "Little darling, don't struggle. Quickly come into the arms of this young master will love you." As he spoke, the wishful staff was raised again, and without waiting for the cracks on the arm of the war puppet to heal, he hit it again. How could the war puppet understand? Next to him, Exen also understood, and her slightly pale golden skin instantly had goosebumps. However, in a moment, Exen was shocked again. In her eyes, this war puppet definitely had the strength of a 5th-level elemental force. This kind of strength did not lie in the depth of the elemental force, nor in the amount of elemental force, but in the strength of the spear, the reaction of the war puppet, and even the moves of the war puppet. Exen understood that this war puppet's moves were ingenious. Each move was flawless, and the waving of the spear was a means to kill the enemy. If she were to face this war puppet, although she could defend herself with the Imperial equipment would definitely not be a match for the huge strength of the war puppet. This was the principle of the so-called one strength conquers 10,000. Xian knew that it was impossible for her to be a match for the war puppet, but the Xiaohua in front of her was unusually brave. He was definitely not the little monk who only knew how to bicker with Xian before. Not to mention the fierceness of the moves, not to mention the elegance of the wishful staff, but the bravery of the war puppet's spear made Xian convinced. The battle between Xiaohua and the war puppet was tragic, and it was almost like the staff was touching the flesh. Xiaohua and the war puppet were evenly matched. Not to mention that you were knocked down by the spear, even I was swept down by the wishful staff. In half a cup of tea's time, the entire passage was a mess. Within 100 feet of space, there were ruins, and it was really ugly. The body of the man and the war puppet was also full of scars. Not only were there thick cracks all over the war puppet's body, even Xiaohua's golden skin was black and missing a few pieces. It should be because of the war puppet's attack. But the more it was like this, the more Xian was shocked. She really couldn't understand, how could a little monk of the Buddhist sect be so vulgar with the war puppet of the Tao sect? Where did those profound Buddhist techniques and even the previous Tao techniques go? Little monk, after watching for a moment, Xian was frightened and couldn't help but send a voice transmission. You? Can you beat the war puppet? Where did all your Buddhist divine abilities go? Grandma, Xiaohua roared, I am a Buddhist Vajra. Is it possible that I am afraid of this war puppet? Xiaohua was once again caught off guard and was hit on the head by the spear. With a loud bang, the ground of the passage also sank a few feet deep hole. You? Why are you competing with a war puppet? Xian also unconsciously roared. What do you know? Xiaohua stood up from the wall and shook the dust off his body. He raised the wishful staff and rushed to the war puppet. At the same time he shouted, This war puppet is not a human. It can only persist because of the spirit stones. This little monk is fighting with it, isn't it just to consume its spirit stones? In an instant, Xian immediately understood the greedy Xiaohua's thoughts. She raised her trembling finger and shouted, You still want this war puppet? Why not? Xiaohua didn't seem to be embarrassed that his abacus had been exposed and asked back. In just a moment, Xiaohua and the war puppet fought for several rounds. Xian's guess was right. A single force conquers all methods. This war puppet relied on this huge force to kill countless cultivators who coveted the profound water palace. And today, it encountered Xiaohua, who excelled in brute force. It could be said that it met a good talent. In the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua actually didn't have the upper hand at all. He didn't find this strange, because during this meal, the battle puppet didn't show any signs of energy exhaustion at all. Even the flaws in the spear's moves were becoming increasingly fewer. How was this the appearance of spirit stones being depleted? What's going on? Xiaohua felt that his arm was a little sore and numb. He was slightly puzzled. At this time, Xian also felt that something was wrong. Seeing Xian urge her genuine qi, the golden light above her eyes shone brightly. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the fiery golden eyes. Little monk. Suddenly, Xian, who seemed to have seen something, turned pale with fright again and exclaimed, Don't you have any ideas? This war puppet doesn't have any spirit stones. The space between its feet and the ground is a little strange. Every time it moves, the world's spirit energy will be sent into the passage. In this passage, no, in the profound water palace, you are definitely not the war puppet's opponent. I see. Xiaohua understood and immediately laughed. Then it's even easier. As he spoke, he patted his forehead. A huge hand emerged from the top of Xiaohua's head and grabbed at the war puppet. The hand of a nascent soul? Xian bit her lips. Her eyes revealed an indescribable look. Even Xian herself didn't know what this meant. Boom! The nascent soul's hand grabbed the war puppet and threw it into the air. Buzz! At this time, the war puppet's body shone with a blue brilliance. Rays of light sharper than flying swords pierced the nascent soul's hand. Even the war puppet's spear pierced the nascent soul's hand with a pung sound, pop. Like the sound of a bubble bursting, the nascent soul's hand was instantly destroyed by the light of the war puppet. Xiaohua's body shone with a golden light. Moreover, the innate divine restriction on his Naiwan palace emitted a faint golden light again. Obviously, the blue thorn could also attack divine sense. This. Xiaohua frowned and fell into deep thought. He had always thought that the war puppet only relied on its fists and feet and couldn't use magic arts. But now, it seemed that it was just as Xian said. The war puppet was part of a magic array. Not only could it borrow the magic power of the magic array and exchange it for energy, the magic array could also use the war puppet to attack. If this was the case, even if Xiaohua captured the war puppet, he might not be able to use it. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's eyes turned. Behind Xian's back, his left hand formed a spell that Xiaohua had comprehended long ago, but he had never used it. Following the activation of Xiaohua's Fa Li, an earthy yellow brilliance flashed around the body of the battle puppet. This brilliance instantly turned into tens of thousands of thin threads, completely covering the battle puppet. When the threads of light disappeared, the entire battle puppet seemed to have sunk into a deep pool. Not only was it unable to wave its spear, even its hands and feet seemed to be bound and unable to move. Chapter 3455. Little darling, you can get up. Xiaohua roared, his figure bent slightly, and the wishful steel staff swung towards the legs of the battle puppet. Before Xiaohua's wishful steel staff could touch the battle puppet, the stone wall flashed with brilliance, and countless fireflies fell like raindrops, covering Xiaohua and the battle puppet. Oh no! Xiaohua was shocked. He didn't know what these fireflies were. He couldn't care less about attacking the battle puppet again. He hurriedly raised his hand, and the seal of turning the sea rushed out of the space. Buzz. When the sound was heard, the bronze brilliance protected Xiaohua. Zilala. Like the sound of water droplets falling into a pot of oil, the bronze brilliance was rapidly eroded, and even the seal of turning the sea itself trembled slightly in the air. Xiaohua hurriedly urged his spiritual power, and his hands formed a seal. The seal of turning the sea roared again, trying its best to resist the green fireflies. At this moment, there was a muffled sound, and a sharp pain came from Xiaohua's abdomen. A violent spiritual power instantly rushed into Xiaohua's transcendence golden body from the pain, destroying Xiaohua's transcendence golden body like a stampede of 10,000 horses. Xiaohua lowered his head in disbelief, only to see that the spear in the battle puppet's hand had already pierced his abdomen. When Xiaohua raised his head to look, the battle puppet, whose hands and feet had been bound a moment ago, was now rapidly flowing with blue light. Xiaohua's silk binding technique had already been broken by shattering fireflies. A thick arm that had suddenly extended by a lot stabbed out with the spear, while the other arm clenched into a fist and punched towards the left side of Xiaohua's face, courting death. Xiaohua was angry. He was greedy for small gains, so he was reluctant to destroy the battle puppet, but he didn't expect to suffer such a big loss. Xiaohua hurriedly retreated, and hurriedly urged the seal of turning the sea. With a loud dragon roar, the coiling dragon on the seal of turning the sea turned 10 feet thick, flew out of the seal of turning the sea, and rushed towards the chest of the battle puppet with the seal in its mouth. Boom. The battle avatar was also extremely agile. Its right fist immediately gave up on Xiaohua and punched the seal of overturn the sea. With a loud boom, the battle avatar's fist was knocked off a large part. The battle avatar's figure also staggered. The seal of overturn the sea was also sent flying high up into the air and rushed to the top of the passage. Little thing, you're down. Taking advantage of the battle puppet staggered, Xiaohua retreated and successfully got away from the spear. At the same time, the wishful steel staff on the ground and hit the left leg of the battle puppet. The battle avatar was originally staggering, but now it was swaying even more, as if it was going to fall to the ground. Seeing this, Xiaohua's eyes widened, and his Dharma body rushed towards the legs of the battle puppet. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to defeat the battle puppet. The battle puppet didn't panic. Although it saw the seal of turning the sea once again rushing from the sky, the right fist that had slowly healed was ready to strike again, and the left arm was retracted, and the spear stabbed towards Xiaohua's back. Dang! Xiaohua naturally let go of the battle puppet's attack, and swung the wishful steel staff in his left hand to block the spear. His Dharma body rushed forward and hugged the legs of the battle puppet. The battle puppet was also very good. Although its figure was crooked, its right foot kicked up without hesitation, obviously trying to force Xiaohua to defend. Who knew, with a loud bang, the right leg of the battle puppet kicked Xiaohua's chest, and Xiaohua didn't intend to dodge at all. Almost like the spear piercing the golden body, a strange force rushed into the golden body, crazily destroying it. When Xiaohua urged the heavenly law embodiment of heaven and earth to contend with this force, he laughed proudly, "Ha! You should obediently be this father's puppet." Along with the laughter, Xiaohua's left arm exerted strength, and his left shoulder arched forward. Like a little ruffian fighting in the marketplace, he wanted to throw the battle puppet over. Regardless of whether Xiaohua's move was obscene or not, in short, it was really effective. The battle puppet's figure was completely out of balance, and it was thrown towards the ground. Xiaohua's right leg swept the ground again, and when the battle puppet's left leg left the ground, he could put the battle puppet into the space. Just when Xiaohua was feeling proud, suddenly, a very familiar hissing sound came from above his head. "See!" Before Xiaohua could raise his head to look, he heard Xin Xian's frightened shout, "Little monk, Blackwater ancient beast." What? Blackwater ancient beast? Xiaohua turned pale with fright. How? How did it get here? Above Xiaohua's head, there was a green brilliance that opened like a door. The Blackwater ancient beast that had previously entered the Blackwater Palace only now found this place. Seeing that Xiaohua was fighting with the battle puppet, its eyes immediately flashed with a dark green brilliance. Following a hissing sound, the Blackwater ancient beast shook its head, and a desolate aura was released from its body, pressing down on Xiaohua like a mountain. At the same time, the Blackwater ancient beast opened its mouth, and a stream of green water poured down like the Milky Way. Amidst Xin Xian's panicked shout, Xiaohua and the battle puppet were covered together. Damn it! Seeing that he had failed at the last step, Xiaohua was helpless. He didn't dare to put his mind on the battle puppet anymore. Before he could even raise his head, he immediately let go of the battle puppet and turned slightly, wanting to escape. At the same time, Xiaohua didn't forget to kick the battle puppet with his right leg, and his left hand slapped the top of his head, releasing a pressure comparable to that of a doppelganger stage cultivator. He did his best to resist the Blackwater ancient beast's ferocious aura. However, Xiaohua still underestimated the strength of the guardian beast. His right leg had just kicked the battle puppet down when his whole body immediately stiffened, as if he was in a block of ice. An indescribable feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. Imprisonment technique? Blood-dripping paradise. Xiaohua was stunned for a moment, then suddenly realized that this was the feeling he had when he was trapped in the blood-dripping paradise. This ancient beast is actually so powerful. At this time, Xiaohua's heart was like dead ashes. Although he had already advanced to the nascent soul stage and his strength had greatly increased, he still didn't have any comprehension of the so-called domain realm. Even the blood drop paradise couldn't cultivate to the domain realm so quickly. Little thing, then let's fight. Xiaohua watched as the profound water ancient beast pounced from the sky. On the ferocious beast's head, its dark green eyes were filled with cruelty. It clenched its teeth and black mist began to surge around its body. Strands of black flames also surged out along with the devil chi. The blood-dripping paradise really had some effect. Xiaohua felt that his body was somewhat relaxed, as if he could move. Unfortunately, the profound water ancient beast didn't give Xiaohua any chance at all. It opened its mouth again and the jade spring rushed out again. Xiaohua felt his body tighten and the blood-dripping paradise couldn't be activated again. What should I do? Xiaohua anxiously thought of a countermeasure. Suddenly, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and slightly closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened them again. Above Xiaohua's head, bursts of golden light flourished. It was the green-robed Xiaohua's invisible nascent soul that rushed out of Xiaohua's body. As the nascent soul rubbed its hands, strands of golden light more intense than sunlight shot into the green fireflies around Xiaohua's body. Kacha! The profound water ancient beast's immature, domain, collapsed under the nascent soul's spell, demonic chi? In the distance, XN had already held the golden hairpin in her hand when the profound water ancient beast appeared. Unfortunately, the ancient beast's power and the domain's power forced XN to activate her genuine chi. The palace dress on her body flourished with golden light as she tried her best to resist. Although XN wanted to spare some time to help Xiaohua, seeing the demonic chi in Xiaohua's golden body, her face was already very shocked. Now, she couldn't be any more shocked. The golden hairpin also froze in her hand. Xiaohua was really too mysterious. Was he a Buddhist? A Confucian cultivator? A Taoist cultivator? Or maybe a devil? XN lost her judgment. She didn't know how to help. At this moment, the profound water ancient beast unexpectedly raised its head. Its dark green eyes looked at XN again. Its gaze fell on the golden hairpin that was already flashing with golden light. Not good. When Xiaohua saw the profound water ancient beast looking at XN, he already understood that this guy wanted to attack XN first. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Sure enough, without waiting for Xiaohua's reminder, the profound water ancient beast turned into a green light and was about to pass over Xiaohua's head. Where are you going? The green-robed Xiaohua urged his nascent soul. With a wave of his hands, the nascent soul's hand appeared out of thin air and was about to capture the ancient beast. Xiaohua himself raised his hand and leaped into the air, attacking the profound water ancient beast with the wishful staff. Whoosh! There was a loud noise. It was the battle puppet that was previously knocked down. Before it could stand up, the spear in its hand unexpectedly flew out of its hand. In a flash, it mysteriously appeared behind Xiaohua's back and went straight to his waist. Xiaohua naturally noticed it this time, but it was really difficult for him to have both sides. If he took care of himself, the wishful staff could certainly send the spear flying, but he wasn't sure if his nascent soul's hand could catch the profound water ancient beast. Even Xiaohua didn't think that a single nascent soul's hand could stop the profound water ancient beast. Forget it. In an instant, Xiaohua made a decision. His right foot turned and kicked. He didn't care if he could succeed or not. His hands used all the strength of his body to attack the profound water ancient beast. He didn't expect to succeed as long as he could block the ancient beast. Woo! Under the wishful staff, the Xianshui ancient beast was covered. The fierce wind could almost tear the void apart. The Yuanying's hand imprisoned the area in front of the Xianshui ancient beast. He wanted to kill this fierce ancient beast. Seeing the profound water ancient beast's body dim and its entire body stagnant in midair, Xiaohua was overjoyed. He knew that the two methods were effective. He may not be able to kill the ancient beast, but he could at least block it. Just as this joy was born, the spear actually avoided Xiaohua's right leg and pierced Xiaohua's back, causing a sharp pain. Chapter 3456. This spear was different from before. A sharpness pierced straight into Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua couldn't help but shudder from the pain. Just as his wishful staff trembled slightly, the black water ancient beast suddenly turned its head. Its two dark green eyes actually showed a hint of cunning. The most unforgettable thing for Xiaohua was that the ancient beast's figure turned into thousands of small dots. These small dots rushed through the shackles of the Yuaning stage's hand, and even dodged the wishful staff's attack, and instantly rushed into Xiaohua's golden body. Rumble! The countless tiny droplets rushed to the location of Xiaohua's golden body. Every single droplet let out an intense rumbling sound, and a hole of several zhang in size appeared in Xiaohua's chest. A sharp pain came, and Xiaohua once again looked down in disbelief. This was the first time he had been so seriously injured. Inside the hole, the flesh and blood were badly mutilated, and wisps of black light and devil chi lingered between the flesh and blood. There was not a drop of blood, but even so, an indescribable dizziness came from Xiaohua's mind, and immediately the entire Transcendence golden body collapsed rapidly. Not only that, after the war puppet spear was pulled out, it pierced towards the back of Xiaohua's head. After the ancient beast's figure appeared behind Xiaohua, it also followed the spear and prepared to pounce on Xiaohua. Xiaohua was in danger. At the critical moment, there was a blood-curdling scream, "Little monk!" With this cry, there was less vigilance, more trust, and more deep regret. With this cry, the entire ventilation channel was filled with a strong wind, and wisps of noble qi condensed from the void. This noble qi was golden in color, almost like water. Xiao Hua helplessly fell to the ground. Although the huge transcendence golden body had not completely collapsed, the hole in his abdomen could still be seen. Xiao Hua's face was full of pain, and he covered the wound with his hand. Although there was no blood flowing out, the scars were really scary. Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked weakly into the distance. He saw Xen crazily raising the golden hairpin in her hand, and her mouth continuously spitting out true qi. The true qi was first golden, then mixed with pink, and finally, it was blood red. Under Xen's control, the golden hairpin emitted a brilliant golden light that was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. Looking at the center of the sun's golden light, an orange red dot that looked like a red heart appeared. This red heart instantly transformed into tiny heart dots that rushed out of the golden light. The moment these red hearts appeared, the golden light immediately transformed into golden flying swords. Each flying sword flashed with the shape of a heart, and each heart had a trace of blood in it. The tens of thousands of flying swords were like a torrent or a river of stars. They rushed towards the Xianshui ancient beast, and wherever the river of swords passed, the golden qi that had appeared earlier would gather. The river of stars became even more majestic, and the flying swords became even sharper. A courageous and fearless feeling filled the entire space. Hiss. The Xianshui ancient beast raised its head and let out a long hiss. Its eyes were filled with vigilance. It opened its mouth and a stream of blue water poured down. Countless blue lights appeared and protected its body. As for the battle avatar, it pulled out its spear and waved it in front of it, as if it wanted to resist the river of swords. The golden light was vast and mighty, and the sword qi was like a forest. The river of stars rushed through the passage and swept past Xiao Hua's head. It easily shattered the Xianshui ancient beast's domain, and like a wave, it drowned the Xianshui ancient beast. The battle avatar's spear was unable to block the river of swords. Although the battle avatar's body flashed with blue light as it tried its best to resist, soon, countless flying swords pierced through its body, and the battle avatar was riddled with holes. However, the moment the Xianshui ancient beast was drowned by the river of swords, it did the same thing as when it attacked Xiao Hua. Its entire body quickly turned into tens of thousands of fireflies. Although many of the fireflies were destroyed by the river of swords, there were still a few that survived. After the entire golden river of swords passed, the golden hairpin's golden light disappeared and fell into Xen's hand. Xen's face was abnormally pale, and she was as dispirited as Xiao Hua. Clearly, the price of activating the golden hairpin was too great. The battle avatar fell to the ground and scattered into a ball. It could no longer fight. Before the battle avatar, the Xianshui ancient beast, which had almost turned into nothingness, reappeared. Although its form was almost completely gone, the dim dots gathered together again. A Xianshui ancient beast that was much smaller than before appeared again. What made Xen feel even more despair was that the four walls gradually flashed with a dark green brilliance. The brilliance was like fireflies that pounced on the Xianshui ancient beast's body. In just a few breaths, the Xianshui ancient beast's body gradually filled up, and its eyes gradually shone with a dark green brilliance. This brilliance was ferocious and cruel as it coldly looked at Xiao Hua and Xen. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua's injuries were very serious, and his body's recovery was also very slow. Clearly, he was affected by the array of the Xianshui palace. Xiao Hua had to whisper to the green-robed Xiao Hua, who was host to his nascent soul, "I wonder if you can control the spirit-slaying Yuan light?" Why would I need the spirit-slaying Yuan light? Watch I's methods. The nascent soul sneered. It opened its mouth and a small cauldron flew out. This was Xiao Hua's life treasure. Now, the green-robed Xiao Hua, who was also a nascent soul, had erased the imprint inside. As the nascent soul pointed its finger, the small cauldron flew out with a five-colored flame. It surrounded the Xianshui ancient beast and burned fiercely. Hiss! The Xianshui ancient beast hissed, and its body uncontrollably expanded. The green fireflies also effortlessly penetrated the flame. It was very obvious that this cauldron could not compete with the ancient array. I'm afraid only the spiritual fire is left. Xiaohua's eyes were a little dizzy, and he secretly said to the green-robed Xiaohua. The green-robed Xiaohua was helpless. He smiled bitterly and said, "Only fellow Taoist can control that thing. I have the will but not the power." Xiaohua's current situation was very strange. His body was injured and he could not use his magic power. On the other hand, the nascent soul that supported his magic power could leave his body under the green-robed Xiaohua's control. However, if Xiaohua controlled the nascent soul, this nascent soul would not have any magic power to control it. But Xiaohua opened his mouth, and his mind turned dark. It was as if he was about to faint. In his blurry eyes, he saw the Xianshui ancient beast quickly take shape. His mouth was incomparably bitter. He unconsciously raised his eyes to look at the similarly helpless Xen. The two of them looked at each other and saw helplessness and despair in each other's eyes. This ancient Xianshui palace was indeed extraordinary. It was comparable to the spirit-severing stage Xiaohua. Xen, who had a great treasure in her hand, fought until the end, but in the end she could not defy the heavens. Oh? Suddenly, a shocked expression appeared on Xen's face. Then, this shocked expression turned into pleasant surprise. She slightly raised her hand and pointed at Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua was also stunned. He raised his head with difficulty, but all he saw was a flickering blue ripple of light. Within the ripple of light, there was the back of the Xianshui ancient beast. The back of the figure unwillingly spread its wings and its strong tail circled in the air a few times before disappearing into the blue ripple. But at this moment, Xiaohua's vision turned slightly dark. He actually felt like he was about to faint. The green-robed Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly controlled his nascent soul to enter his dantian and urged Xiaohua to take out the pill from the space. When Xiaohua sent the green-robed Xiaohua into the space, before he could take out the pill, a wisp of fragrance came from his mouth and nose. Xen's slightly tired voice sounded in Xiaohua's ear. "Little monk, this is the origin replenishing pill of my Confucian cultivator. It is a panacea for repairing the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. You were injured by the Xianshui ancient beast. You should hurry and take it, right? Benefactor Xen, you take it first." Xiaohua slightly propped himself up and pushed her away. Xen said unhappily, "I just used too much of my essence. I don't need this origin replenishing pill. You take it first. I will immediately take other medicines." "Okay," Xiaohua nodded. He took the origin replenishing pill and put it into his mouth without looking at it carefully. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, a sizzling sound came from Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua's body shook violently. "Oh no!" Xiaohua was slightly stunned. He immediately understood that the origin replenishing pill's medicinal power was conflicting with the blood-dripping paradise's demonic blood in his blood. Xiaohua hurriedly withdrew the blood-dripping paradise. When the demonic blood was completely absorbed, Xiaohua's body instantly produced thousands of tiny whirlpools. While the origin replenishing pill was repairing Xiaohua's viscera, it also produced a powerful suction force. It produced an awe-inspiring aura out of thin air and entered Xiaohua's body. The sizzling sound fell into Xen's ears. Xen acted as if she didn't hear it. She took out a jade box from her bosom and poured out some pink powder from the jade box to consume. After only a cup of tea's worth of time, a dark red color slowly appeared on her cheeks. During this period of time, Xiaohua's abdomen gradually healed. When the surface of the wound couldn't be seen, Xiaohua took out another set of clothes from the space. He didn't have a monk's robe. He also didn't dare to take out a Taoist robe. He only found an ordinary scholar's robe. Xiaohua checked a little and couldn't help but bitterly smile. His body was indeed powerful. It was really like what the Back Earth Village's elder Wu said, he had reached the realm of a demigod. Just now, the fatal blow from the mysterious water ancient beast and the 2 stabs from the battle puppet couldn't take his life. His body was currently rapidly recovering, especially his blood vessels. The blood-dripping paradise was even crazier. It had already recovered his blood vessels a step ahead of his body. However, this kind of recovery was not without a price. This recovery consumed Xiaohua's essence. Although this essence could be replenished with extremely rare spirit pills, the most important thing was to rely on the accumulation of one's own cultivation. The path of essence didn't have any special shortcuts. Normally, one could only rely on the accumulation of years and months of bitter cultivation. Even so, Xiaohua's most seriously injured internal organs still couldn't be repaired in time. Xiaohua's body had the celestial body bestowment technique, his meridians had the Dao sex cultivation method, and his blood vessels had the demon realm's blood-dripping paradise. However, these internal organs didn't have a specialized cultivation method. They could only be repaired by relying on the body. XNXion's Chaoyuan pill was very effective. It had already repaired the most basic outline of the severely damaged internal organs. However, at this time, the Chaoyuan pill had already lost its effect. The remaining parts could only be slowly repaired by the celestial body bestowment technique. Chapter 3457. It's really a loss. Xiaohua checked. Thinking about the danger just now, he still had a kind of lingering fear. If he didn't have XNXion's golden hairpin, that black water ancient beast would have pounced again and his body would have been injured again. His body might have a strong recovery ability, but it couldn't withstand too much damage. If he was attacked by the black water ancient beast and the battle puppet a few more times like this, he really would have fallen here. Thinking of this, Xiaohua couldn't help but secretly curse. This black water ancient beast is too insidious? It actually used a diversion tactic? No, it's besieging Wei to rescue Zhao. No, it's loosening the reins only to grasp them better. This kind of trick, I have to think about for a long time. This guy can actually do it in an instant. It really became a demon. However, although XNXion's golden hairpin is powerful, it's obvious that XNXion can't fully activate it. The Blackwater ancient beast still has the strength to fight in the end, but why did it flee in panic? Little monk. When Xiaohua was thinking, XNXion opened her mouth. Thank you for just now. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid it bodes ill rather than well. Alas, don't say any more, Benefactor XN. Xiaohua waved his hand. That was the Blackwater ancient beast's plan to loosen the reins only to grasp them better. Its main goal is still this little monk. Speaking of this little monk still has to thank you for your help. If it wasn't for you, this little monk would have gone to see my family's Buddha. XNXN looked at Xiaohua with a somewhat complicated gaze and asked tentatively, Little monk, don't be modest. If you see your family's Buddha, won't I see my family's saint? You and I are now in the same boat. How can we not help each other? Right? How's the effect of the Chaoyuan pill? Why do I see that your complexion is not as good as I expected? Xiaohua naturally heard the meaning behind XNXion's words, but he didn't intend to say it clearly. He smiled and said, Benefactor's Chaoyuan pill is really effective. This little monk's extremely injured internal organs have now been repaired. There's no major problem for the time being. After we find a way out, this little monk will return to the temple to recuperate. And this Chaoyuan pill is a sacred medicine for us Confucian cultivators to consolidate the essence of the foundation. If the 5 qi is insufficient, the 5 elements are damaged, and the foundation of the true qi is broken, this pill can be used to heal. Even an injury like the little monk's would have been completely healed if there wasn't anything strange about it. XNXN nodded her head slightly as she said this with a double meaning. Xiaohua acted as if he didn't hear the meaning behind XNXion's words. He smiled and said, Perhaps my Buddhist sect. Just as he said this, Xiaohua was suddenly shocked. His smile froze on his face as he looked at XNXN in confusion and hastily asked, Fellow Immortal XN, you said, what do you mean by insufficient 5 qi and damaged 5 elements? What was the foundation of true energy? This What does this have to do with the damage to the internal organs? The corner of Xian's mouth hung a smile. Her eyes revealed a trace of craftiness. She wasn't trying to probe Xiaohua's Confucian cultivation base. After all, cultivators who cultivated both Buddhism and Confucianism, Taoism and Confucianism were not uncommon in hidden Immortal continent and Western paradise. What she wanted to know was the details of Xiaohua's devil qi. But even so, Xiaohua's words still revealed his Confucian cultivation base. Isn't the little monk a disciple of the Buddhist sect? Why are you so interested in the secrets of our Confucian cultivators? Xian didn't answer the question, but asked instead. Holy shit, secrets? Once he heard the secrets, the greedy Xiaohua's heart itched like a cat scratching it. Cough cough. Xiaohua, pitifully, hugged his abdomen with his hand, coughed twice and said, "This little monk was only curious. Previously, I only heard that Confucian cultivators only needed to cultivate a lump of righteous qi in their chest to be able to shake the heavens and move the earth, but I didn't expect that this true energy had something to do with the internal organs. Little monk, have you ever burned a fire before?" Xian suddenly asked a seemingly unrelated question. Who would have thought that Xiaohua would very naturally answer, "Of course, this little monk has been a farmer since childhood. Chopping firewood, burning fire, weeding, plowing, there's nothing that I don't know, ah?" Xian was stunned. At the same time, Xiaohua himself was also stunned. The two of them opened their mouths, and the shape of their mouths was very similar. This little monk is really pitiful. Xian reacted, thinking that Xiaohua was joking. She very pitifully said, "Then what does this little monk use to burn a fire in his house?" Xiaohua returned to his senses and thoughtfully said, "Naturally it's withered branches and dry firewood. If it's winter, perhaps there's also some withered grass, or even dried wheat straw." Wheat straw. Xian naturally didn't know what wheat straw was, but she also didn't want to ask. She nodded and said, "Since this fire is lit by these withered branches and dry firewood, then without these, wouldn't it be impossible to start a fire? Ordinary people naturally can't." Xiaohua slightly frowned, as if he somewhat understood. "That's right. Under the great Tao, we are all ordinary people." Xian hit the nail on the head. Although the noble qi of us Confucian cultivators is true qi, it's not the same as the true qi of the Taoist sect. The difference is not only that Confucian cultivators cultivate the noble qi, but also that the true qi of Confucian cultivators isn't a wood without roots or a fire without a source. You're saying? Xiaohua suddenly felt that it was a bit inconceivable. His tone was somewhat stuttering. Your Confucian cultivators' true qi isn't purely refining the noble qi, but refining the 5 viscera and 6 bowels, using the 5 viscera and 6 bowels to produce true qi, and then refining it in the middle dantian? The heart hides the spirit, the hotian is the spirit, the xiantian is the etiquette, the emptiness is the sorrow, the southern red emperor's fire qi is the origin. The liver hides the soul, the hotian is the wandering soul, the xiantian is the benevolence, the emptiness is the happiness, the eastern greenwoods wood qi is the origin. The spleen hides the intent, the hotian is the delusion, the xiantian is the faith, the emptiness is the desire, the central yellow emperor's earth qi is the origin. The lungs hides the soul, the hotian is the ghost soul, the xiantian is the righteousness, the emptiness is the anger, the western white emperor's metal qi is the origin. The kidney hides the essence, the hotian is the turbid essence, the xiantian is the wisdom, the emptiness is the happiness, the northern black emperor's water qi is the origin. Xian's face suddenly showed a dignified expression, and she recited word by word, "This is the so-called 5 qi origin of our Confucian cultivators. Cultivating this 5 qi origin is the fundamental great Tao of our Confucian cultivators." But, Xiaohua bit his lips. He didn't have time to think about why Xian would reveal the secrets of Confucian cultivators to him at this time, and hurriedly asked, "Why? Are there not so many records of Confucian cultivators in the ancient books? Only talk about refining true qi?" Xian didn't answer, but instead said with a smile, "Little monk, you seem to know a lot about our Confucian cultivation method." "Correct." Xiao Hua nodded. "This little monk has dabbled in a lot, and once practiced Confucian cultivation method even." Puff! Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and a Tai-E azure light flew out, like a flying sword. It turned half a circle in the air, and then fell into Xiao Hua's mouth. "Sure enough." Xan slightly nodded. "You actually practiced to the point of transforming metal qi into a sword. Really good." "But what?" Xiao Hua asked. Xan faintly smiled. "But this little monk is the same as the majority of people in the hidden immortal continent. He practiced it wrong." "Oh, it can't be said that he practiced it wrong. It should be that he practiced it wrong." "What do you mean?" Xiao Hua asked again. Xan also didn't hide it, and explained, "This little monk seems to also have a Taoist cultivation. Presumably, you also practice Confucian cultivators' true qi as Taoists' true qi, right?" Yes. Xiao Hua also didn't hide it. Not only that, this little monk also practiced heaven and earth origin qi as noble qi. Now I ask benefactor to explain. "I don't dare to say that I can explain. I only know that the people in the world are increasingly utilitarian and increasingly impatient. On one hand, they give up the foundation of the five qis unification and only pursue the refinement of true qi, emphasizing the power of cultivation method. On the other hand, they purely pursue the pinnacle of the five qis, disdaining the benevolence of the balance of the five qis, and have long lost the original intention of Confucian cultivators." Xan lightly said, "In fact, in the early years, Taoist sect stole the cultivation method from us Confucian cultivators and created the method of using meridians to refine true qi and condensing true qi in my lower dantian. This is originally the inferior method. Now, we Confucian cultivators have actually seen the power of Taoist sect's magic, and once again, we only practice true qi and give up the five qis unification. How can we achieve the great Tao?" "What? You said that Taoist sect's cultivation method was stolen from you Confucian cultivators' five qis unification?" Xiao Hua laughed involuntarily, feeling very absurd. "This is an old legend, and it's not something I can make up." Xan said in all seriousness, "I also don't know if it's true or not." "That's nonsense." Xiao Hua shook his head. "One is the refinement of meridians, the other is the refinement of the five viscera and six bowels. It can only be said that they are different methods to achieve the same result. How can it be stolen? Could it be that only Confucian cultivators have the good fortune of heaven and earth, and that true qi is the true essence of heaven and earth?" This. Xan hesitated slightly, staring at Xiao Hua for a moment, and then said, "The refinement of the five viscera and six bowels is different from the refinement of meridians, and the origin of true qi, perhaps, is not the noble qi." "Then what is it?" Xiao Hua retorted sarcastically. Xan faintly smiled, her eyes like the moon. "Why should I tell you? Little monk, we were just casually chatting. Have your injuries healed? Can we enter the real profound water palace now?" As she spoke, Xan pointed at the messy stone wall not far away, where a triangular blue brilliance was slowly emerging. Needless to say, it was the exit of the passage. "Are we going in now?" Xiao Hua knew that Xan would definitely not tell him the secrets of Confucian cultivators in full detail. Now that she had said so much, it was already a kind of repayment to him. If he continued to ask, he would only be met with disdain. Thus, he no longer thought about it, and looked at the revealed exit with a bitter smile. "We are all injured, so how can we take away the immortal tool?" "Ha, little monk, you really want that immortal tool?" Xan laughed. "You can't even defeat the ancient profound water beast guarding the door, so how can you take away the immortal tool? Let's go, don't think so much. Follow me in and see if there is the person I'm looking for. If there is, little monk, you can help me." "Oh, don't worry, I definitely don't want any immortal tool, I just want to save people. If there isn't, we'll find the exit and leave, okay?" Chapter 3458. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, "You also want to save a Confucian cultivator?" That person? Forget it, who cares what he does? If I can help this little monk, then I will. However, you're also injured now. You relied on that golden hairpin's imperial weapon? Correct. Xan saw that Xiaohua did not ask about that person's origin and was quite satisfied. She nodded and said, that golden hairpin is exactly what I relied on. This item consumes a lot of true qi and profound qi. With my cultivation, I can only use it 2.5 times. Previously, I didn't help in time because I was hesitating. This little monk once heard that the hidden immortal continent has 10 great imperial weapons. Your golden hairpin doesn't seem to be one of them. Can it be so powerful? Xiaohua asked in disbelief. The so-called 10 great imperial weapons are just a joke. Xan coldly snorted. How can an outsider know the background of my Confucian family? Xiaohua stood up. The triangular light had already taken shape. There seemed to be a door in the light, but neither Xiaohua's eyes nor divine sense could see it. The two walked in front of the light. Xiaohua frowned and said, Xan Yenyue, are you sure that this door is an immortal weapon? Or can we find the exit from the immortal weapon? Xan's face showed a trace of excitement. Who knows what's inside? This might even be the exit of the profound water palace. But since we've already reached here, can we still stop? Xan waved her hand and the golden hairpin appeared in her hand again. She said, Little monk, you go in first. Xiaohua jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. He said, My injuries are worse than yours. You're still holding an imperial weapon that's even more powerful than the 10 great imperial weapons. I'm a woman, you're a man. Xan crossed her arms and said with a smile. But you want to save your lover? There's no reason for me to take the lead, right? Xiaohua still shouted. Xan's face was slightly red. She rolled her eyes at Xiaohua and said in a low voice, Who said I want to save my lover? That person is my relative. So it's like this. Xiaohua felt very strange. His heart relaxed for no reason. He thought about it and waved his hand. He took out the wishful staff and urged the golden light to protect his body. He stepped into the light. However, just as Xiaohua's figure touched the light shadow, a golden light appeared from the top of his head and quickly swept through his body. Then it disappeared. Xiaohua's figure also disappeared. Could it be that I saw it? Xan frowned slightly. This is the Devil Buster golden light of the Dao sect. Since the little monk has devil qi on him, why hasn't he been killed by the Devil Buster golden light? Even if he wasn't killed, he wouldn't he to go in, right? Xan thought to herself. Her footsteps were not slow. She held the golden hairpin in her hand and entered the light door. As Xan's figure disappeared, the light door suddenly shrank and disappeared. Xiaohua naturally did not know that the golden light was the devil-expelling golden light of the Dao sect. He only felt that as the golden light flashed, his eyes were slightly dazzled, and an overflowing scenery seemed to flow by like the wind. Soon after, his entire body felt light, and before he could focus his eyes and see anything, he felt an indescribable warm current erupting from the bottom of his feet. It did not care about his meridians or blood vessels as it rushed towards the top of his head. In just an instant, this warm current had penetrated through his body. Xiaohua's internal organs were ironed by this warm current, and there was not a single place that did not stick. His 36,000 pores felt as if they had eaten a ginseng fruit, and there was not a single pore that was not carefree. In addition to the comfort, Xiaohua didn't care about the situation around him anymore. He hurriedly checked. What he almost couldn't believe was that not only was his yuanying, which had lost a lot of true qi, now in high spirits, but his seriously injured internal organs were also in good condition. Where was the serious injury before entering the door? How is this possible? Xiaohua was shocked. He didn't dare to believe that when this golden light swept through his body, all his injuries were healed. Could it be that this is the power of an immortal artifact? As he thought about this, Xiaohua hurriedly looked up. He saw that Xiaohua was in a huge palace. The entire palace was dazzling with gold and jade. 81 huge coiling dragon pillars supported the entire palace. Around the palace, there were 81 flying phoenix curtains covering the 4 walls. At this moment, Xiaohua was standing at the entrance of the palace. The palace door, which was hundreds of feet tall, was inscribed with countless simple and unadorned runes. These runes were the same as the runes on the flow of water in the passageway earlier. They were flowing at varying speeds. Following this flow, mountains, rivers, water, flowers, birds, insects, and fish all appeared on the palace door and even on the walls nearby. Every time a light flashed, it was as if a small world had appeared. Xiaohua slightly furrowed his brows when he saw all these living creatures appear. He was somewhat unable to understand whether these runes were real or not. He had never seen the runes of a formation show such an abnormality. But soon after, his heart shook again. My Dao Sex formation has always borrowed the power of the world. However, the power of the world is ultimately limited and is limited to this part of the world. If I really want to take another step forward, I'll have to transcend the world. Could it be that this ancient formation has already surpassed my knowledge? This profound water palace that guards the immortal artifact can actually borrow the power of a small world? If that's the case, then a formation formed from tens of thousands of small worlds isn't something that can be broken by ordinary people. The one who set up this formation must be an immortal. Little monk, what are you thinking about? Why don't you go in? Xian's voice came from behind Xiaohua just as he was pondering. This little monk is wondering whether this is the profound water palace. Xiaohua's eyes turned as he answered with a smile. Nonsense. Xian raised her brows for no reason. She pointed at the signboard above the palace door and said, "Don't you see it? Isn't it written with the words Profound Water Palace? If this isn't the Profound Water Palace, then where is it? If this is the Profound Water Palace, then why did the golden light just now seem to have the Confucian school's 5 elements restoration technique? And why is it different from the Dao Sex formation golden light?" Xiaohua looked up again. He really didn't pay attention to the signboard above the palace door. Sure enough, at the place where Xian was pointing, there was a huge, glittering golden plaque at the top of the palace door, with the words Mystic Water Palace written on it. That's not right. Xiaohua's gaze swept over the signboard and was shocked because the words written on it were the Dao Sex characters from the Dawn Rain continent. They were completely different from the hidden Immortal continent's inscriptions. He didn't know how Xian could recognize them. Xian didn't know about Xiaohua's doubts. She looked at Xiaohua and said with a smile, "That golden light is the supreme golden light of the Confucian cultivators. It is also one of the secrets of the Confucian cultivators that I didn't tell you. Not only can this golden light repair your internal organs, even if your physical body completely disappears and only your soul is left, this golden light can instantly heal you." How is that possible? Xiaohua was in disbelief. If you don't believe me, you can try. Why don't you let the profound water ancient beast kill you and only leave your soul behind? Xian smiled. Alas, the ancients said that a woman's heart is the most poisonous in the world. This little monk just saved you and you actually cursed this little monk like this. This little monk really has nothing to say. Xiaohua sighed and said with regret, "You're still a little monk." Xian pointed at the signboard above the palace door and sneered, "This is the ancient Dao Sex language. It's lost in the hidden Immortal continent and Western paradise. If that Ci Hui came here, she probably wouldn't recognize it. You actually recognize it, yet you still dare to call yourself a little monk?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "I admit that I have some Dao Sex cultivation. Dao Sex cultivation is even higher than Buddhist sex cultivation. However, I didn't hide this from you. When I repelled the profound water ancient beast, I also used it in front of you. Alas, fellow immortal." Xian sighed and said, "At this point, you finally spoke the truth. This concubine thought that you would continue to hide it from this concubine." Seeing that Xian actually called herself this concubine, Xiaohua's eyeballs were about to fall out. He blinked his eyes in disbelief and stared at Xian. "What are you looking at?" XNXN rolled her eyes at Xiao Hua and scolded, "There are no flowers on this concubine's face." Xiao Hua rubbed his nose. He knew that XNXN was returning the favor. It's this one's eyes that grew flowers. Alas, actually, this concubine shouldn't blame fellow Immortal. XNXN sighed, "Isn't this concubine also hiding her identity?" Fellow Immortal XN. When Xiaohua heard this, he hastily waved his hand and said anxiously, "Don't say any more. This one has some misgivings and can't tell fellow Immortal XIN about her identity. If you do, this one won't be able to return the favor." A trace of hidden bitterness appeared on XNXIN's face. She glanced at Xiaohua, then lowered her head to look at the ground and said in a low voice, "Since this concubine entered Sage River, fellow Immortal XN has saved my life many times. If it weren't for fellow Immortal XN, this concubine would have turned into a skeleton in Sage River long ago. In the face of fellow Immortal XIN's kindness of rebirth, how could this concubine have the face to ask fellow Immortal XIN's identity? However, if this concubine didn't tell fellow Immortal XIN about her identity, how could this concubine have the face to follow fellow Immortal XIN into this profound water palace? How could this concubine have the face to ask fellow Immortal XN to help save this concubine's loved ones from that immortal artifact? All right. Xiaohua thought for a moment and nodded slightly. Fellow Immortal XN, if you feel guilty, feel free to say it. Otherwise, it will be detrimental to your mental state. As for the matter of helping, why should fellow Immortal XN bring it up again? Since we've arrived at the profound water palace, this one will naturally lend fellow Immortal XN a hand. If fellow Immortal XN doesn't mind, then please call this concubine XN. XN said with a smile, "This fellow Immortal XN sounds very distant." Of course. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said, "If fellow Immortal XN doesn't mind, you can also call this one Xiaohua. Just treat it as a flower in fellow Immortal XIN's hair." When XN heard this, she couldn't help but feel slightly angry. However, she immediately thought of something, and her hair drooped down while her face turned slightly red. Chapter 3459. Bad. When Xiaohua saw this, he complained bitterly in his heart, "Damn it, how could my mouth be so slippery? How could I say these things so casually? Not to mention Hongxia Fairy, even the late Xue Xue." Just as Xiaohua was regretting, XN raised her head again. Her face was red, but she still had a resolute expression as she said, "Xiaohua, a Confucian sage, have said that a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. You've saved this concubine several times, so this concubine should repay you with her body. This concubine feels that my humble appearance cannot enter your eyes. Moreover, this concubine has a heavy responsibility. Before rescuing Jiyan, this concubine doesn't dare to mention this important matter." Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. His face and neck were red as he said, "This concubine never meant that. This concubine was only joking. Don't take it seriously. Since your father is being suppressed in the profound water palace, you and I should hurry in and rescue him." XNXIN's eyes flashed with gratitude, but there was also a trace of disappointment. However, she slightly smiled and cleverly concealed it. She said, "This concubine's heart is in a mess right now. Young master, please don't take my words to heart." As she spoke, she looked at the door of the profound water palace again, not daring to take a step forward. XN, what are you afraid of?" Xiaohua frowned and asked, puzzled. "Alas." XN sighed again. "To tell you the truth, this concubine was born in a second-rank Confucian family in the hidden Immortal continent. Since childhood, this concubine has enjoyed a luxurious life. Young master may not know the splendor and wealth that this concubine has enjoyed. Even the princess of a country may not be able to compare to this concubine. Oh, I don't know if young master has heard of the Jianghu kingdom in the hidden Immortal continent. The power behind that kingdom is a branch of my Xian clan. Their princess is simply not worthy of being in my Xian clan. Alas, this concubine is talking too far. When this concubine grew up and could cultivate, this concubine not only read all the ancient books in the clan, but also learned some Taoist magic by analogy. At a young age, this concubine entered the realm of refining essence into qi. When this concubine's cultivation was successful, the clan passed down my Xen clan's gold essence cultivation technique. This gold qi gathering art is very difficult to cultivate, and it has always been exclusively cultivated by the men in the tribe. However, in my hands, it is like a smooth path for me. The bottlenecks that many others encounter do not even exist in my eyes. Thinking back to that time, I really felt like I was a heavenly beauty. Your aptitude is much better than this little student's. Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. What's the use of having good aptitude? Cultivation is just cultivation, nothing more. A bitter look appeared on Xian's face, and she said, I wholeheartedly practiced, wanting to refine the gold qi into the 5 qis unification realm. So, I searched for ancient books and secret arts in the clan and even in the hidden immortal continent, wanting to see the mystery of Confucian cultivation. However, when I found a trace of truth that was buried in time, I found another big secret in the clan. At this point, Xen looked at Xiaohua. Presumably, young master already knows what this secret is, right? Xiaohua nodded. It's not like I have a pig's head. How could I not guess? Alas, I never thought that a second-rank aristocratic family would actually hide such filthy things. Xen sighed more than once. My father was originally a candidate for the position of clan head, but the current clan head, in order to fight for this position, actually tricked my father into coming here in the name of treasure hunting, and then used an immortal tool to suppress him. And in order to cover up his crime, he pretended to be fond of me. He never rejected my requests and agreed to all of them. If I didn't obtain the ink cloud pupil personally written by my father, how would I know the big secret of this world? Seeing the always strong Xen become so weak, and the bitterness in her heart poured out, Xiaohua couldn't help but take a deep breath and say, Poor Xen, I didn't think that you had so many difficulties in your heart. Previously, you hid so many secrets, and this little student thought that you coveted the immortal tool, but I didn't think. At this point, Xiaohua couldn't say anything more. He felt that he really let Xen down. Young master, don't blame yourself. Xen raised her head, tears in the corners of her eyes. It's all in the past. You just need to believe me from now on. But now, I'm standing in front of the profound water palace. My wish of so many years is about to come true, but I'm still a bit nervous. I don't know what I'll be facing. Or will it all be for nothing? Xen didn't dare to continue. At this moment, she felt her hand warm as a large hand grasped her trembling, cold hand. Xiaohua's voice sounded in her ear. Don't be afraid, Xen. You didn't dare to say it before because you were afraid of danger at any time. You were even more afraid of delaying the chance to save your father, so you always faced it alone. And now you have me. The ancients were right. If 2 people share happiness, there'll be 2. If 2 people share pain, there'll be 2 halves. This little student is willing to share this pain with you and reduce your pain by half. Many thanks, young master. Xen was momentarily dazed by the sight of the profound water palace. After saying so much, her heart felt somewhat empty. However, when she heard Xiaohua's words of comfort, her heart suddenly felt full. Although the words, young master, didn't refer to Little Blossom, they contained a lot of meaning. Let's go in. Xiaohua raised his head and narrowed his eyes. Since we're already here, we have to face reality. Even if it's an immortal artifact, this little student wants to flip it over and see what it's like. Young master, you're so bold. Xen praised. She gently pulled her hand out of Xiaohua's grasp, and then took out the golden hairpin from her hair. She smiled and said, however, young master only needs to help this concubine rescue Jian from the suppression of the immortal tool. There's no need to overturn the immortal tool. Xiaohua smiled, raised his eyes to look at the enormous palace doors, and walked in. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, there was no obstruction at the entrance. There was no radiance or ripples of magic power. It was no different from the entrance of an ordinary palace. XN naturally followed him into the profound water palace. As soon as she entered, she immediately looked around with an extremely anxious expression on her face. XN, don't be anxious. Xiaohua reminded her, since we've already entered, it's best to be careful. Don't lose your composure because of this. XN took a deep breath and nodded. You're right, young master. I don't know why, but my mind has been in chaos over and over again today. I'm afraid it's because I'm about to see my father, right? Alas, this little student originally wanted to search for the immortal artifact separately from you, but now it seems like we can only go together. Xiaohua smiled bitterly and shook his head slightly. XN lowered her head in embarrassment and looked at the ground. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. I'll listen to young master's instructions. Let's go. We'll start searching from the left. Xiaohua waved his hand and led XN towards the left side of the profound water palace. The floor of the profound water palace was paved with huge blue stones, each of them dozens of feet in size. The edges of every blue stone were covered with strange runes. These runes were golden in color, and they flowed as Xiaohua and XN walked. Although Xiaohua couldn't sense any ripples of magic power from these runes, he believed that the restrictions within the profound water palace were definitely more formidable than any of the previous passages. First, they arrived before a coiling dragon pillar. Xiaohua and XN's gazes fell on the pillar and the coiling dragon. The pillar itself didn't have any radiance, but the coiling dragon's muscular body emitted a faint golden light. This golden light seemed to come from the coiling dragon's scales and body. The huge dragon head that coiled its way up the pillar had its bloody mouth open and was facing the top of the palace. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and touched the coiling dragon pillar. An extremely cold feeling came from his palm. Xiaohua frowned slightly and slowly withdrew his hand. After that, the two of them circled the pillar a few more times. However, they didn't find anything strange about the pillar. The two of them looked at each other and didn't seem to be disappointed. Soon after, they continued walking forward. The palace was huge. The two of them walked for the time it took to burn a stick of incense before they arrived at a high platform with more than 10 steps. Above the platform was a small space with a golden seat. Xiaohua and XN were facing the other side of the palace that they hadn't explored before. Xiaohua looked up and said to XN, "It seems that the immortal artifact isn't below the platform." XN didn't pay attention to Xiaohua. Instead, she looked at the golden seat on the platform and bit her lip. It was unknown what she was thinking. Xiaohua didn't dare to disturb her. He stopped and waited quietly at the side. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, XN spoke. "Young master, if I'm not mistaken, the immortal artifact should be beside the golden seat. Or perhaps, this golden seat is the immortal artifact itself." "It can't be? This seat is the immortal artifact?" Xiaohua was flabbergasted. "This, isn't the appearance of the immortal artifact a little too low? If young master doesn't believe me, we can go forward and take a look." XN slightly tightened her grip on the golden hairpin in her right hand and said with a forced smile. "But..." Xiaohua nodded. He lifted his leg and said while walking, "This young man doesn't believe." However, before he could finish his words, his raised leg stopped in midair. Because a layer of invisible restriction appeared out of thin air above the high platform, blocking Xiaohua and XN below the high platform. "Young master, move aside. Let me take a look." XN saw that there was something strange about the platform. Instead of being surprised, she was happy. She took a few steps to the side and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her originally black and white eyes gradually grew golden threads. Those golden threads grew more and more until her entire pupil turned golden. Suddenly, Xiaohua's vision blurred. It seemed that XN had blinked. Her pupils suddenly shook and two golden pupils overlapped each other. Immediately, XN slowly walked to the front of the platform. She looked up and down, left and right. Moreover, she looked while walking as if she was looking for a flaw in the restriction. After looking for half a meal's time, XN's figure slightly swayed and then she closed her eyes. Xiaohua was just about to ask with concern when he saw Xian's hand hit the top of her head. King. A golden sound soared into the sky. A golden sword appeared in the air along with true energy. Chapter 3460. Xian suddenly raised her arms, and the flying sword suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in Xian's hands. Open! Xian roared without hesitation. She was not inferior to men. A golden light flashed, and the golden sword slashed into the invisible restriction on the stage. Swoosh! With a crisp sound, a straight crack appeared. Immediately after, the left side of the crack flashed rapidly. The light spread out in all directions, and gradually, a golden halo that sealed off the high platform was revealed. Young master, Xian, whose face was full of joy, suddenly shouted, "Quickly give this concubine a hand." But Xiaohua glanced at the slowly healing crack and answered without hesitation. The staff in his hands slammed down. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and the golden light near the crack immediately turned into golden fragments. A hole in the golden halo was quite eye-catching. Young master, quickly follow this concubine in. Xian seemed to be a little shy. She reached out and grabbed Xiaohua's sleeve. She wanted to jump through the gap, but just as her figure flew up, she suddenly fell from the air. Xiaohua's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. His right hand held Xian's waist, and she floated into the gap like a fallen leaf. Many thanks, young master. Xian was very shy, and the golden color in her eyes had not faded. Xiaohua very naturally looked into Xian's eyes, and a sharp pain like needles piercing his eyes came from them. Without waiting for Xiaohua to scream, and without waiting for Xian to finish speaking, an unparalleled power, more violent than a flash flood, instantly submerged the two people. Xiaohua was extremely frightened, and his body involuntarily trembled. His legs could not stand firm, and a deep fear was born from the bottom of his heart. At this time, Xiaohua did not pay attention to the stinging pain in his eyes, and looked up with difficulty. The platform in front of him was very different from before. Above the golden throne, there was an oval mirror emitting a silvery white brilliance like a bright moon. This brilliance covered the entire platform, and that unparalleled power was emitted from this mirror. Following the brilliance, the entire platform was enveloped in this brilliance. Ah! Kunlun mirror? Xiaohua was once again stunned. This was already the fourth Kunlun mirror he had seen, right? Plop. Just when Xiaohua recognized the Kunlun mirror, a soft sound came from beside him. Xian could no longer support herself. Although the palace dress on her body was still emitting a golden jade brilliance, she still collapsed to the ground. The golden hairpin in her hand flashed a few times, but it was silent. Clearly, this golden hairpin was not an immortal tool. Puff! Xiaohua's left leg slightly trembled, and he also knelt on the ground. Then, his right leg began to tremble rapidly. It was obvious that he could not hold on any longer. Roar! Xiaohua roared as he waved the wishful staff, trying to resist. Unfortunately, the wishful staff hit the air and seemed to have no effect. Poof! Xiaohua's hands and feet did not listen to him anymore. His other leg was also paralyzed, and the wishful staff was also thrown to the ground. Xiaohua was speechless, his heart thumping. Damn, this is the real Kunlun mirror. Although no one is controlling it, even this Xiao's avatar is unable to stand in front of it. Young master. Next to him, Xian fell to the ground and said with difficulty, "It's all this concubine's fault for implicating young master. This concubine really underestimated this immortal tool. I didn't expect this immortal tool to be so powerful. With my cultivation, I can't even stand in front of this immortal tool. How can I save people?" Hee hee. Xiaohua also grinned bitterly. This young master is even more arrogant than you. He actually wants to take this immortal tool. Damn, this young master is really a frog at the bottom of a well. Young master has such ambition. One day, you will be able to take this immortal tool. This concubine believes. XNXN also forced a smile. Xiaohua looked up and said, "In any case, at this time, except for the Kunlun mirror, there is nothing else. Your father doesn't seem to be here." Speaking of this, Xiaohua did not know how to comfort her. After all, Xiaohua was confident that he did not have the ability to take this immortal tool. Even if XNXIN's father was here to suppress it, he was afraid that he would be powerless. But since XNXIN's father was not here to suppress it, where could he be? XNXIN's disappointment could be imagined. Sure enough, XNXIN's face instantly paled. 2 translucent crystals flashed in her eyes. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but thousands of words and indescribable worries only turned into a sigh. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on Xiaohua's body. He could not move at all. Fear grew in his heart. At this time, not only was XNXIN's hope of finding her father dashed, even his hope of escaping from the mysterious water palace had become slim. How do I get out? Xiaohua turned his head and swept his gaze over the entire platform. He thought to himself, this Blackwater Palace is a complete palace. It only has one entrance, and this platform is the end of the palace. If there are any exits, they'll all be on this platform. But there is only one golden chair on the platform. Perhaps, like the Misty Clouds sect, that chair is a transportation array? Thinking of this, Xiaohua came to a realization. At this time, XNXN whispered again, "Young master, this concubine still has a secret method to activate the golden hairpin. Perhaps it can send you to the golden chair." This concubine has pondered for a long time. Perhaps this golden chair is the secret passage to leave the mysterious water palace. If this young master leaves, what will you do? Can you leave with this young master? Xiaohua did not answer, but asked directly. XNXIN's face became distressed. It's all this concubine's fault. This concubine doesn't know whether Ci Hui and Great Master Gu Zhen are dead or alive, but this concubine is willing to send you out. No need. Xiaohua sneered. He clenched his fists and shouted, "This young master has his own methods. Let this young master see how powerful this unmanned immortal weapon is." Young master? XNXIN turned pale with fright. She hurriedly said, "Young master, don't force yourself." However, XNXIN's words were too late. Xiaohua's body flashed with golden light. Under the suppression of the immortal weapon, the golden light had become extremely thin. However, as the golden light shone, Xiaohua slowly stood up. At the same time, he used the reflection of heaven and earth mystique. His transcendence golden body expanded inch by inch. Ice. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed XNXIN's arm. With another roar, he swung his arm and threw XNXIN towards the golden chair. Young master? XNXIN's eyes were filled with tears. Dong. XNXIN's body hit the golden chair. Then she powerlessly slid back onto the chair. However, to Xiaohua's surprise, not only did the Kunlun mirror in midair not move, but the golden chair itself also did not move. There must be something wrong with the golden chair. Xiaohua's transcendence golden body had been formed. Now, he was slowly walking in the immortal weapon's power. The pair of eyes on his expressionless face moved slightly. When Xiaohua raised his head and saw the Kunlun mirror floating above the golden chair, his heart skipped a beat. With a wave of his hand, the ice sea mirror flew out from the space. Wang wang. When the ice sea mirror flew out of the space, a loud roar immediately sounded. 3-colored brilliance instantly rushed out from the ice sea mirror without Xiaohua's urging. The tricolored light went straight into the Kunlun mirror. The entire mirror surface of the Kunlun mirror was like boiling water. Rings of 7-colored light rushed out of the mirror surface as if they were overflowing, and spun around the entire platform. Dong. Suddenly, as if a huge hammer hit the Kunlun mirror shook heavily. A silver-white brilliance rushed out from the bottom of the 7-colored brilliance and directly fell on the ice sea mirror. Like an ice cube that saw sunlight, the ice sea mirror instantly disappeared, leaving behind only a 3-colored ball of light. And these 3 balls of light flew back to the Kunlun mirror like young swallows returning to their nest. Xiaohua watched all of this with his eyes wide open. His connection with the ice sea mirror had been cut off the moment the ice sea mirror flew out of the space. Wang wang wang. The 3 balls of light fell into the Kunlun mirror. The Kunlun mirror boiled again. This time, the entire Kunlun mirror disappeared and turned into a silver-white ball of light. Shwa! One of the rolling balls of light shone on the golden throne. The golden throne also emitted a brilliance. When a golden halo appeared, Exen, who was inside, disappeared. Seeing this, how could Xiao Hua not know that the Kunlun mirror and the golden throne were the key to leaving the mysterious water palace? Xian must have been teleported out. Looking at the halo that was still revolving around the golden throne, Xiao Hua hurriedly walked over and finally stepped into the halo before it disappeared. The moment the halo touched Xiao Hua's foot, it immediately revolved along Xiao Hua's transcendence golden body. With every inch it revolved, Xiao Hua's transcendence golden body disappeared. In just a few breaths, the halo rushed to the top of Xiao Hua's head, and his transcendence golden body completely disappeared. Where is this? No, this is not Sage Jianghu. This is where the mysterious water palace just came from. Xiao Hua felt dizzy, just like when he was in the teleportation formation. When he opened his eyes, he was dumbfounded. Looking at the familiar triangular mirrors around him, he complained inwardly. Wasn't this the mirror that Xiao Hua, Xian, Ci Hui, and Guzhen used to avoid the mysterious water ancient beast? Could it be that the Kunlun mirror didn't teleport me out? Xiao Hua recalled his avatar and looked around with doubt. What is this? Xiao Hua's gaze had just moved away from the mirror when he saw a treasured sword flashing with a milky white brilliance. This treasured sword was more than 9 feet long, and the hilt was 1 foot long. There were dragon and phoenix patterns on it, and a fist-sized heart-shaped object was at the end of the hilt. The blade of the treasured sword was 8 feet long, but it didn't look sharp. In fact, it didn't even seem to be sharpened. There were no spikes at the tip of the sword, only an oval shape. Chapter 3461. The Son of Heaven's Sword. Although this treasured sword didn't show that it was the Son of Heaven's sword, Xiao Hua's eyes saw the long sword's great craftsmanship. In his heart, he immediately understood that this must be the Son of Heaven's sword, the Son of Heaven's sword that shook the 9 provinces. So the Son of Heaven's sword was hidden here. Perhaps this is the true profound water palace. Xiao Hua pondered as he spoke, his gaze once again moving downwards. The Son of Heaven's sword light was very quiet, but it also had a kind of absolute dominance. A sword light as thick as a thumb pierced through space and rushed down. Far below the Son of Heaven's sword, where it had almost left the surface of the mirror, there was no light. It was like an abyss. There, the Son of Heaven's sword light transformed into a faint sword of light. Below the sword of light was an extremely dim golden sword of light. The tip of the sword was pointed upwards, resisting the sword of light with all its might. Although Xiao Hua didn't know what the golden sword of light was, he understood when he saw Xian's faint figure beside it. This was where Xian's father was suppressed by the Immortal artifact. The Immortal artifact suppressed was none other than the Son of Heaven's sword. Not only was there an immortal artifact in the mysterious water palace, but there were 2 of them. What's going on? Why isn't the Son of Heaven's sword as powerful as the Kunlun mirror? Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Also, I can use my divine will. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua didn't have time to think anymore. He hurriedly used the wind escape technique to fly down, which was the place he had just flown a few hundred feet. Kacha! A series of crisp sounds came from above his head, all around him, and under his feet. The triangular mirror surface flashed with silver-white brilliance one after another. In the end, the entire space turned into an extremely smooth mirror surface. The Kunlun mirror. Xiao Hua looked at the incomparably huge mirror surface and a familiar feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. This is inside the Kunlun mirror. I understand now. There is indeed only one immortal artifact in the mysterious water palace, and that is the Kunlun mirror. The Son of Heaven's sword is inside the Kunlun mirror. Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Young master? At this moment, XNXN transmitted her voice filled with surprise and excitement. XNXN? Xiao Hua also responded and sped down. When he saw the situation of the golden sword, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was a huge sword that was hundreds of feet tall. The huge sword looked very simple and unadorned. The huge sword constantly emitted a golden sword light. The sword light was like tiny flying swords, but when these flying swords rushed out of the huge sword, they were immediately pierced by the Son of Heaven's sword and completely disappeared. Looking into the giant sword, there was an extremely dim and huge figure hidden within. This figure was an old man with golden hair and beard. The old man's hair and beard fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were tightly shut. Although the expression in his eyes could not be seen clearly, his tightly shut lips, his slightly clenched teeth, and the Chuan character between his eyebrows showed the old man's unyielding and fighting spirit. Sword transformation realm? Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed as he scanned the giant sword with his divine sense. Young master? XNXN bit her lips, her face flushed with surprise. She looked at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice, "This is my father. I didn't expect that he would be suppressed by the Son of Heaven's sword." "Do you have a way?" Xiao Hua asked straightforwardly. XNXIN's eyes were filled with deep sorrow, and she almost choked with sobs as she said, "Young master, you don't know, but my XN family's ancestral gold chi unification technique is restrained by the Son of Heaven's sword. From my father's situation, he couldn't resist the Son of Heaven's sword chi and was forced to transform into a sword. There's a saying in the sect, once you transform into a sword, you will be immortal for all eternity. Without the Gung Earth, 10,000 years will become nothing. Only my father can protect himself now. Without the help of the Gung Earth, I'm afraid he will forever be a sword. Whether it's the Gung Earth or not, I don't know." Xiao Hua was a little anxious. "I only know that if I don't save your father from the suppression of the Son of Heaven's sword, even if you find the Gung Earth, I'm afraid it won't be of any use." XNXN hurriedly shouted, "Young master, you don't know, but my greatest reliance is the golden hairpin, and the golden hairpin isn't of the earth attribute. Before young master came over, I had already thought about it. Unless there's a great master who can refine true chi to the earth chi unification realm and use the Gung Earth to awaken my father, then I will activate this golden hairpin. Only then can we help my father escape, otherwise, I'm afraid I can only rely on the Son of Heaven's sword." "The Son of Heaven's sword?" Xiao Hua raised his eyes to look at the Son of Heaven's sword floating high in the sky. The sword light was incomparably peaceful, far less fierce than the Kunlun mirror from before. He couldn't help but have an idea in his heart. XNXN was worried about her father, but now she was helpless. Seeing Xiao Hua looking at the Son of Heaven's sword, she didn't know what to feel. She hoped that Xiao Hua could break the suppression of the Son of Heaven's sword so that she could save her father. But she also understood that although Xiao Hua's strength far exceeded her expectations, he might not have the ability to break the Son of Heaven's sword. If he wasn't careful, he might even end up dying. "Young master?" XNXN thought for a moment and couldn't help but shout, "This Son of Heaven's sword looks very gentle, just like the teachings of our Confucian cultivators. It's the attitude of a modest gentleman. But young master should know that when the Son of Heaven is angry, millions of corpses will fall and blood will flow for thousands of miles. If young master touches the Son of Heaven's sword's reverse scale, you will definitely provoke the Son of Heaven's sword. The might of the Son of Heaven is far from what we poor people can compare to." Haha. Hearing this, Xiao Hua, who was originally hesitant, looked up to the sky and laughed. "What is the Son of Heaven? It's called having a genius and a son. What is the Son of Heaven? The Son of Heaven is where the people go. This Son of Heaven's sword doesn't face the people's hearts and suppresses the innocent. How can it become the Son of Heaven's sword? In the Kunlun mirror, there is no heaven and no earth. How can this Son of Heaven's sword be called the Son of Heaven's sword? Now, I am not talented, but I will hold up the sky for you. Since I am the sky in the Kunlun mirror, this Son of Heaven's sword should be in my hands." After laughing, The golden light around Xiao Hua's body flourished again. Countless hurricanes rushed out of the mirror and landed in Xiao Hua's golden body. The golden body, which was originally hundreds of feet tall, became even bigger, reaching hundreds of feet tall. In this space, it was like a demon god. Young master? Xian clenched her hands tightly. Her body trembled slightly. Her eyes looked at Xiao Hua's golden body, and an unconcealable light was released involuntarily. Rise. Xiao Hua waved his hand. In his huge palm, the heaven and earth sleeve technique was used and firmly covered the son of heaven's sword. Then, with a loud shout, he raised his hand and wanted to pick up the son of heaven's sword. Clang! A loud sound of metal clashing came from the son of heaven's sword. Following this sound, a deterrence that was not inferior to the Kunlun mirror came from the son of heaven's sword. Moreover, following this deterrence, thousands of sword lights rushed toward Xiao Hua more ferociously than thousands of soldiers and horses. It is indeed the wrath of the Son of Heaven. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air and slapped his forehead. His vast divine sense was released like the pressure of the sun shrouding art. Although it could not compare to the majesty of the Son of Heaven's sword, it was like a howling wind that rushed straight over. Boom! Tens of thousands of tiny whirlwinds appeared out of thin air, and the entire space shook. The smooth surface of the mirror in the surroundings emitted a creaking sound, and rays of clear light swayed in a very disorderly manner within the space. Xiao Hua's golden body deflated, and he spat out a mouthful of golden blood. Before the blood could dissipate, Xiao Hua gritted his teeth and opened his mouth. The spiritual fire flew out and landed in the blood. Like a firebird that had been reborn from blood, the edges of the spiritual fire flashed with traces of blood. It expanded rapidly in midair and instantly turned into several acres, covering the Son of Heaven's sword. The moment the Son of Heaven's sword, which was like thousands of soldiers and horses, touched the spiritual fire, it immediately melted and disappeared. Even the unparalleled power of the Son of Heaven's sword was greatly weakened by the spiritual fire. Xiao Hua was overjoyed when he saw this. He stretched out his hand, and his entire right arm turned into flames. The flames were not only spiritual fire, but there were also bits of black flames between the threads of fire. The threads of fire jumped on the side of Xiao Hua's arm and turned into thousands of firebirds that danced. The black flames also roared and turned into devils that wreaked havoc beside these firebirds. Bringing the firebirds and devils, Xiao Hua's fire arm followed behind the spiritual fire and grabbed at the Son of Heaven's sword. Rumble! The Son of Heaven's sword let out a roar that sounded like heavenly thunder. It was as if the Son of Heaven was enraged as he looked down on the 9 provinces from above. The sword light that was previously charging forward had now completely turned into a faint gold. It was like a war chariot that crushed space in midair and charged toward the spiritual fire. Anger! 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 Xiao Hua also roared. His left arm that did not transform into flames waved in midair, and 9 lightning balls that were dozens of feet in size also let out a loud roar and fell from afar. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning flashed. The 9 heavenly lightning bolts were one step ahead of the spiritual fire and smashed onto the sword light that was like a chariot. The lightning was like the sun, and the sword light collapsed with a bang. It was even more tragic than 10,000 horses falling to the ground. Although the majesty of the Son of Heaven's sword barely supported the sword light, the spiritual fire that came whistling over immediately completely wiped out the unyielding sword light. Puff, puff, puff. The spiritual fire surged and increased its speed. The space of nearly 1,000 feet flashed and disappeared, drowning the Son of Heaven's sword. Strange sounds of destruction were heard. The previous brilliance of the Son of Heaven's sword was quickly swallowed by the spiritual fire. Even the light pillar that suppressed the sword trembled slightly in the flames. It seemed to be the roar of a dragon, but it was also the fury of heaven and earth. Billions of sharp thorns suddenly appeared in the red and yellow spiritual fire. These sharp thorns were like swords, releasing a golden brilliance. As soon as they appeared, they immediately covered the entire spiritual fire. Xiao Hua's spiritual fire, which had always been invincible, was instantly pierced by these light thorns. However, although the spiritual fire was divided into extremely small threads, each wisp of spiritual fire was equally powerful. Puff, puff, puff. Fine sounds like bubbles bursting were heard from his sword light, like the washing of rain. In a few breaths, the spiritual fire and the light thorns disappeared, revealing the appearance of the Son of Heaven's sword inside. At this moment, the Son of Heaven's sword was trembling rapidly, and its brilliance was clearly much dimmer. Chapter 3462. Xiao Hua's attack did not stop there. Just as the Son of Heaven's sword appeared, the fiery arm immediately reached inside. The two-colored flame burned the space around the Son of Heaven's sword until it was abnormally distorted. The Son of Heaven's sword could no longer calmly float in its original spot. The entire sword trembled and slashed upwards slightly. A gray mark hundreds of feet long flashed in midair. The sword beam streaked past the end of the gray mark and instantly pierced towards the fiery arm. Boom! The moment the Son of Heaven's sword moved, the beam of light that was suppressing the Son of Heaven's sword collapsed. The Son of Heaven's sword phantom on the Son of Heaven's sword shook slightly and looked like it was about to collapse. When XNXN saw this, ecstasy appeared on her face. Without any hesitation, she waved the golden hairpin in her hand. A golden-green river of stars rushed out from the golden hairpin and headed straight for the Son of Heaven's sword phantom. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of horses and spears clashing could be heard from the phantom and the river of stars. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were fighting inside. In just the blink of an eye, the Son of Heaven's sword phantom that was stubbornly resisting flashed a few times and dimmed. Hum! The golden sword that had been suppressed suddenly let out a long howl. The sword beam extended, but the golden sword beam only extended about 3 feet before dimming and rapidly retreating. The figure of an elder that could be vaguely seen on the giant sword flashed a few times before slowly disappearing. Under the golden hairpin's golden-green light, only a flying sword was left. XNXIN's face was bleak as she called out softly for her father. Unfortunately, the flying sword was cold and she did not hear any response. XNXN did not dare to be negligent. She waved her hand, wanting to grab the flying sword. However, the flying sword wailed and with a flash of sword beam, it slashed at XNXIN's arm. XNXN saw the danger and did not dodge. Blood flashed as the flying sword slashed into her flesh. Strangely, the moment the blood touched the flying sword immediately stopped. Its brilliance faded and it obediently landed in XNXIN's hand. There was no joy on XNXIN's face. She carefully hugged the flying sword and looked up at the sky. At that moment, the space that had been sealed beneath the flaming arm was easily cleaved apart by the Son of Heaven's sword. The Son of Heaven's sword had already stabbed into the flaming arm. The extremely arrogant flaming arm was easily sliced into two by the Son of Heaven's sword edgeless. Ouch! An indescribable pain rose from the bottom of Xiao Hua's heart. He looked on helplessly as the severed arm turned into a charred mass and disappeared in midair. Black flames rolled rapidly around the severed arm of the embodiment. The golden sword light flashed like lightning in front of the black flames. The severed arm could not be regenerated. Shua! The Son of Heaven's sword was raised again, and another gray sword mark appeared. This time, the Son of Heaven's sword's target was Xiao Hua's head. Young Lord. In the distance, XNXN turned pale with fright and hurriedly called out. Unfortunately, she was too far away and not only could her voice not reach him, even her worries would be for naught. XNXN raised her hand and looked at the golden hairpin in her hand. She clenched her teeth and stabbed the golden hairpin into her heart. Woo! The golden hairpin immediately turned blood red and flew out of XNXIN's hand. It was faster than a shooting star. It drew a bloody mark in midair and charged straight at the Son of Heaven's sword. The Son of Heaven's sword slashed out and all 9 provinces submitted. This sword even caused the space in front of Xiao Hua to collapse. In the blink of an eye, it reached the space between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Go! Xiaohua's figure flashed and hurriedly waved his hand. The seal of ocean overturning seal roared and rushed out to meet the son of heaven's sword. Shua! There was no suspense at all. The seal of ocean overturning seal merely blocked the son of heaven's sword and was immediately split into two. The roaring coiling dragon was also split into two from head to tail. At this moment, Xiaohua saw that there was no way to dodge. Just as the son of heaven's sword was about to slash down on his forehead, woo! A blood-red light flashed and the golden hairpin appeared at the end of the son of heaven's sword. Boom! Another loud sound. The golden hairpin hit the son of heaven's sword. Unfortunately, although the golden hairpin was powerful, it was still a mantis blocking a chariot. The son of heaven's sword only shook a little and the golden hairpin was sent flying. The son of heaven's sword that could split heaven and earth continued to slash down. Young master. Xian's heart was in pain. She had not even tasted the joy of saving her father and she immediately had to pick another bitter fruit. Just as Xian was crying blood, suddenly, a brilliant light appeared above her head. That formless nascent soul had appeared from the top of Xiaohua's head. The nascent soul's two small hands formed hand seals and pieces of mirror light appeared. Pieces of mirror surfaces blocked the son of heaven's sword at the same time. Ka. Countless crisp sounds rang out in the air. These mirror surfaces continuously appeared in front of the son of heaven's sword. However, these mirror surfaces were continuously shattered by the son of heaven's sword. Seeing that the nascent soul's spell to control the icy mirror was effective, Xiaohua felt a joy of escaping death. He took advantage of this opportunity to quickly dodge. Then, the nascent soul waved its hand again. Shua! Several beams of light appeared from the surrounding mirror surfaces and shone in front of Xiaohua. A huge Kunlun mirror appeared. Boom! The son of heaven's sword struck again. The entire Kunlun mirror shattered with a bang, turning into millions of fragments. However, all of these fragments flashed with residual light. When these lights shone in front of the son of heaven's sword, the entire space was filled with a grayish-white color. Cracks appeared in the space. Come out, there was another soft shout. The nascent soul was very calm. It rubbed its hand again and dozens of beams of light appeared again. Around the spatial cracks, four Kunlun mirrors appeared at the same time. The flashing mirror lights sealed the area around the son of heaven's sword. The son of heaven's sword was like a galloping horse. It finally had no way out here. After blocking left and right in the space, it gradually calmed down. At this moment, four huge fire arms stretched out from the four Kunlun mirrors at the same time. Just like the son of heaven's sword that had broken them, they grabbed at the son of heaven's sword from four directions. The son of heaven's sword slashed and one of the fire arms in front of its head shook slightly. It was as if it was a mirror-like shadow and did not break. Then, the son of heaven's sword pounced towards the fire arm beside it. However, the strange thing was that when the son of heaven's sword slashed four fire arms in a row, these four fire arms were actually nothingness. None of them were broken. Furthermore, just as the son of heaven's sword's blade flashed past the last firearm, the first firearm quickly grabbed the hilt of the son of heaven's sword in a flash. Roar! The son of heaven's sword roared angrily again. The sword body trembled rapidly, as if it was about to break free from the firearm. Countless flames and black flames surged out from the firearm, completely covering the hilt of the son of heaven's sword. The fist-sized heart was also injected with black flames and flames at the same time, turning red, yellow, and black. Swoosh! The firearm trembled slightly. The four Kunlun mirrors once again emitted a powerful light, imprisoning the son of heaven's sword. After a full meal, the son of heaven finally calmed down. Ha! Xiaohua laughed loudly. His voice shook the sky. The four Kunlun mirrors instantly turned into fireflies. As Xiaohua raised his hand, the son of heaven's sword flashed and pointed at the sky. He chanted, "I hold the son of heaven's sword. The world is in my chest. Congratulations, young master. Congratulations, young master." Xian, who was hugging the flying sword, flew up weakly with a flushed face. She congratulated the incomparably tall Xiaohua's Dharma body. Xiaohua smiled slightly. His body slowly shrunk until it was the size of an ordinary person. He said with a smile, "Congratulations to you too. You have obtained the flying sword, I have obtained the treasured sword. We have both fulfilled our wishes. Young master's remarkable abilities are far from what I can compare to." Xian's eyes were filled with admiration. She hurriedly replied, "If it wasn't for young master accompanying me this time, not to mention being able to save Jian, even my crippled body would have to stay in Saint River." Speaking up to here, Xiaohua glanced at the flying sword in Xian's arms again. He asked with concern, Xian, how do you save your father? I don't know if I can help." Speaking of her father, a trace of worry appeared on Xian's face. She said faintly, "Although young master's methods are heaven-defying, father has already used my Xian family's secret technique under the suppression of the Emperor's sword. Like I said before, he needs the help of a rustic grandmaster. Only then can he be awakened with my assistance from the side. But," Xiaohua said anxiously, "your father and Xian family's patriarch are not on good terms. Now that he has brought the flying sword back, wouldn't he be walking into a trap?" Seeing Xiaohua's concern for her, Xian pursed her lips and smiled, "Young master, don't worry. This is Elysium, far from hidden immortal continent. I have made many friends in Elysium. Finding one or two rustic grandmasters is not difficult." "Hee, that's good, that's good." Xiaohua rubbed his hands and smiled happily, "I am also relieved." Speaking up to here, Xian looked at the mirror on the left and asked tentatively, "Young master has already subdued the Emperor's sword. But how do we get out of here? How do I and young master return to the Sage River?" "Hee, that's easy." Xiaohua waved his hand in the air and a simple Kunlun mirror appeared in his hand. Xian was shocked and asked curiously, "Young master, you? How did you subdue this Kunlun mirror? How come I didn't see it?" "Hee, it was a coincidence." Xiaohua smiled and said, "I used to have a magic treasure. It was a fragment of the Kunlun mirror. When I entered this place earlier, the fragment was fused with the Kunlun mirror. Because that magic treasure had already been refined by me, I can use the real Kunlun mirror if I don't have to." Young master is very talented. Xian sincerely admired and praised again. Xiaohua raised the Kunlun mirror and spat a mouthful of clear air on it. The Kunlun mirror shot out a misty blue light and landed in the air. A passage appeared in front of Xian. Xiaohua put away the Kunlun mirror and stretched out his hand with a smile. "Let's go, I will send you out." "Yes, thank you for your trouble, young master," Xian replied. Her face blushed. She slightly hesitated and sent her soft hand over. Holding Xiaohua's hand, she stepped into the passage with Xiaohua. The passage was actually very short. Before the warmth of Xian's soft hand could warm Xiaohua's heart, a cool breeze blew in front of his eyes and a mist of water hit his face. The two of them had already reached the Sage River. Chapter 3463. The Saint River was still the same Saint River. The thousands of whirlpools on the river were still spinning. However, the sun was already high in the sky. The golden sun shone on the river, making people dizzy just by looking at it. Alas! Xian reluctantly pulled her hand out of Xiaohua's hand. She looked down at the river and sighed, for people agreed to enter the river, but only 2 returned. Although you and I both gained something, my heart is still sad. Xiaohua nodded. Since you and I walked the right path and found the mysterious water palace, then Ci Hui and Master Guzhen walked the wrong path. I'm afraid they died long ago. The dead are gone, and the living want a better life. Xian, I have something urgent to do, so I'm afraid I can't go with you to find them. I never thought of asking you to go. Xian was a little angry and threw her hand out of Xiaohua's hand. Now that we're here, I still don't know your name. How can I dare to let you go with me? This. Xiaohua was very embarrassed and said with a smile, Actually, I already told you before, but you didn't care. How come I didn't know? Xian was stunned. Xiaohua smiled. Hee hee, I'm called Xiaohua. Xiao as in Xiaohua, Hua as in Xiaohua. Didn't I already tell you? Xiaohua. Xiaohua. Xine couldn't help but laugh. She raised her fist and hammered Xiaohua's chest a few times, and said angrily, You call this announcing your name? Xiaohua felt sweet in his heart, as if he was enjoying it very much. After a moment, Xine's neck turned red. She took out a white flower similar to Xing and handed it to Xiaohua, saying, Xiao Gongzi, this is this concubine's keepsake. This concubine won't tell you where my Xine family is. After all, this concubine doesn't know how to get along with the Xine family in the future. If you want, you can go to the Jianghu kingdom to find this concubine. Just give this token to the queen, and she will have a way to inform this concubine. But Xiaohua took the white flower and carefully put it away. Xin waved her hand, and the strange black and white bird flew out. Xin stepped on it, and looked back with reluctance, and said in a low voice, Young master, this concubine will go now. If you're doing well, then I'm doing well. Xiaohua nodded. You have to take care of yourself. When I'm done, I'll definitely go to Jianghu country to look for you. Good. This concubine will wait for young master's news. Hearing this, Xine's face lit up with joy. The strange bird beneath her spread its wings and flew away with Xin. After flying for several dozen meters, Xine's gaze was still fixed on Xiaohua. Go, saving people is more important. Xiaohua waved his hand, and Xine's figure finally disappeared. However, just as Xiaohua was about to fly away, Xine's voice came again. Xiaohua, the queen of the Jianghu country is a national beauty. You shouldn't be charmed by them, if this concubine knows, Xiaohua's body trembled as he looked into the distance in astonishment. Xin's go-go. Laughter gradually became softer in his ears. This little girl? Xiaohua unhappily snorted. She's not as beautiful as Hongxia Fairy, but she's much more jealous. Damn it, why did this young master have feelings for her? Xiaohua couldn't be blamed. After all, he had been lonely for hundreds of years. Even a cultivator's heart would grow grass. In this Xianshui palace, Xiaohua and Xin had gone through life and death together several times. Under such circumstances, any man and woman would inevitably feel close to each other, not to mention Xiaohua had risked his life several times for Xin and won her heart. In the end, Xiaohua showed his might, took the emperor's sword and Kunlun mirror, and saved Xin's father. This kind of great kindness could only make Xin repay it with her body, right? Of course, if Xiaohua could accompany Xin and save Xin's father from the sword, that would be even more perfect. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was still thinking about Jianghu, and C.I. Hui's life or death was unknown. Xiaohua could only go to Jinshan Temple by himself. Fortunately, when Xiaohua was bargaining with C.I. Hui, he had fully considered this accident and asked about the situation of Jinshan Temple. Now that he had bid farewell to Xin, Xiaohua looked at the sun above his head. His figure swayed, and he flew in the direction of Jinshan Temple. After flying for half an hour, the mountain ridge gradually became steeper. The trees all over the mountain gradually became thicker, and the people gradually became fewer. Even the commonly seen temples in Elysium couldn't be seen. Xiaohua's heart unconsciously jumped. He had a bad feeling that he seemed to be lost again. But when he looked up at the sky, he didn't know when, but the scorching sun was in the sky, and the sky was covered with dense red clouds. Bolts of lightning flashed in the clouds, and there wasn't a trace of wind in the whole world. This told him that a huge array had enveloped the world. Damn it, there's going to be a big storm. Xiaohua sighed. Even if this young master wants to find someone to ask, I can't. Helpless, Xiaohua released his Buddhist sense and casually looked around. In just half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua suddenly discovered that at the foot of a mountain, next to a stream, under a Bodhi tree, there was a little monk sitting upright. This little monk looked to be around 10 years old. He was wearing an ordinary monk's robe, and his teeth were white and his lips were red. In front of the little monk was a flat piece of land, and there were a dozen or so stones placed on it. Woo! At this moment, a light wind blew from the horizon, gently blowing Xiao Hua's scholarly robe. Along with this light wind, thousands of fierce winds gradually formed. That fierce wind not only wreaked havoc in the sky, but also the green trees and forests between the mountain peaks were blown askew by this fierce wind. Little monk. Xiao Hua used the wind escape technique to land in front of the little monk and hurriedly shouted, "A big storm is coming. Why are you still here? Where is your temple? This one will send you back." Hearing Xiao Hua's voice, the little monk's face revealed a smile. He opened his eyes, and his pair of eyes shined like stars. The little monk opened his mouth, and his words almost scared Xiao Hua. "You finally came?" "Ah?" Xiao Hua was stunned, and his heart became alert. Golden light flashed around his body, and he coldly asked, "Who are you? How did you know this one was coming?" Speaking up to hear, Xiao Hua suddenly realized that if someone knew he was coming, who else could it be besides the person who built the Shaolin Long Temple? Immediately, Xiao Hua's Buddhist sense swept over the little monk, and he hurriedly said, "Senior, who are you? Could it be that you came from the Shaolin Long Temple on the snowy mountain? Were you waiting for this one here?" Hee. The little monk was very indifferent. He pointed in front of him and said with a smile, "Benefactor, don't be anxious. Sit down and finish this game of chess first. This little monk will break it down for you one by one." "Play chess?" Xiao Hua looked at the stones on the ground. Sure enough, these stones were divided into two halves, and there were also some lines drawn under the stones. Senior is in a good mood. Xiao Hua didn't dare to relax. He cupped his hands and said, "However, at this time, a storm is coming. Even if you want to play chess, you still need to find a place to take shelter from the rain, right?" "Haha, benefactor's words are wrong. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. As long as your heart is calm, where will the storm come from?" The little monk smiled and pointed his finger to the sky. Sure enough, the mountain where the wind was still roaring suddenly stopped. After a few breaths, the clouds that sealed the sky slowly dispersed. In the clear sky, a blazing sun revealed a smiling face. The little monk was smiling under the shade of a tree. Hiss. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked at the little monk in disbelief, and then looked at the sky. Xiao Hua, who had mastered the lightning flash and thunder roll technique, could now make the weather change. However, no matter how powerful he was, it was impossible for him to make such a large area of storm stop with just a point of his finger. Without green seal characters, spells, and magic power, Xiao Hua was sincerely convinced. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior's method is good, this one has learned. Sit down. Let's play this game of chess first." The little monk faintly smiled and pointed with his finger. Xiao Hua had no choice but to sit down. He lowered his head to look at the chessboard and said with a bitter smile, "Senior, this one's talent is naughty and mischievous. I don't know how to play chess." "Hee, it's simple. This poor monk will teach you. I guarantee that you will be able to learn it in one try." The little monk faintly smiled and pointed at the chessboard on the ground. Xiao Hua listened with rapt attention. After a short while, he understood. There were only a dozen chess pieces on the ground, and they were divided into two groups. Moreover, the lines on the ground were limited. No matter how difficult it was easy for a cultivator like Xiao Hua. "Senior?" Xiao Hua frowned and said, It's that simple? It's that simple." The little monk raised his hand, picked up a stone and threw it forward. It landed on one of the intersections. He casually said, "It's your turn." But Xiao Hua lowered his head and stretched out his hand. Just as he was about to pick up a stone from his side, he glanced at it and asked curiously, "Senior, why is there one missing?" "Oh, that's right." The little monk raised his eyes and looked. He couldn't help but become slightly angry. This Wang Bianfei is too shameless. He actually took away the chess piece. No wonder he won against this poor monk yesterday. Wang Bianfei. Xiao Hua was stunned. He asked curiously, "Senior, who is this?" "Don't care about him." The little monk looked left and right. He didn't see any stones. He simply used his hand to touch his chest and took out a black triangle. He threw it to Xiaohua and said, "Use this as a chess piece." "No need. Senior, I have one here." Xiaohua caught the triangle. He waved his right hand and picked up a stone from a distance and placed it on the ground. The little monk waved his hand generously and said, "I'll give this to you." But Xiaohua looked at the heavy triangle in his hand. He didn't know what this thing was for. However, since it was given by the senior, Xiaohua didn't say anything and casually put it in his chest. He looked at the chess pieces on the ground and very carefully picked one up and threw it on the ground. The so-called way of chess, the rules were very simple. However, it was very difficult to master it. The little monk seemed to be very familiar with this chessboard. He casually broke the move that Xiaohua had been thinking about for a long time. In just a short moment, Xiaohua was defeated by the little monk. Chapter 3464. Senior's chess skills are exquisite. This one is unable to catch up to you. Xiaohua arranged the chess pieces and said with a smile. Then, he looked at the small monk and quietly listened to the small monk's analysis. Unexpectedly, the small monk pointed his finger and said, "You can only comprehend the mysteries of chess when your heart is undistracted. How can you beat this poor monk if your heart is distracted?" Again. But Xiaohua looked at the unfathomable small monk and thought for a moment. Then he raised his hand and began to play according to the small monk's rhythm. The second game was naturally Xiaohua's loss. However, the situation was much better and the time taken was much longer. Seeing the small monk beaming with joy seemed very satisfying. Without saying anything, Xiaohua arranged the chess pieces again and began the third game with the small monk. The sun seemed to be hanging above their heads, motionless. However, Xiaohua and the small monk had already played nearly 30 games. In the beginning, Xiaohua was not the small monk's opponent. After 5 games, Xiaohua gradually caught up. After 10 games, Xiaohua had a card up his sleeve. No matter how the small monk threw the chess pieces, Xiaohua was able to easily defeat him. He casually threw the chess pieces and forced the small monk to the brink of death every time. After 15 games, it was a complete copy of Xiaohua's first game. The small monk was utterly defeated as soon as the game started. He was no longer Xiaohua's opponent. However, what Xiaohua did not understand was that the little monk seemed to be very happy with this simple game of Go. Despite being killed one game after another, he did not give up one game after another. Aside from the gradually increasing awkwardness between his brows, the expression in his eyes grew even more intense. After one game, a new one was placed. The small monk suddenly flicked his sleeves and stood up. "I'm not playing anymore. Damn it, you are much better than Wang Bianfei." Ah! Xiaohua was stunned when he saw the small monk acting shamelessly like a naughty child. However, before Xiaohua could stand up, the small monk pointed behind Xiaohua and said, "Hey, isn't that Wang Bianfei? Are you looking for him?" Xiaohua hurriedly turned around. However, there was nothing behind him. In the distance, there were still specks of light in the forest. Where was the figure of a person? What is the meaning of this? Xiaohua vaguely felt that something was wrong. When he turned around, something that shocked him happened. The small monk sitting in front of him disappeared. How is this possible? Xiaohua turned pale with fright. Presently, he wasn't an ordinary cultivator. He was a nascent soul grandmaster of the Dao sect and a 5-foot golden lotus realm of the Buddhist sect. Which one of his cultivations wasn't enviable? However, this little monk had actually quietly disappeared in front of him. Xiaohua didn't feel anything at all. How could he not be surprised? What level had this little monk's cultivation reached? However, when he thought of the fact that the other party had been waiting for him at the Little Ling Long Temple on the Great Snow Mountain 10,000 years ago, he must be at least a Buddha Lord, right? In other people's eyes, he really looked like a child. However, when he thought of this, Xiaohua was stunned again. He looked at the scattered stones on the ground, as well as the vertical and horizontal lines. This so-called chess skill was nothing more than an ordinary country child's play. Why did this senior expert care so much about it? Could it be? Xiaohua suddenly thought of a possibility and hurriedly reached out to take out the black triangle from his bosom. Sweeping it with his divine sense, he unexpectedly discovered that this object was not ordinary. This is a Buddhist treasure. Xiaohua immediately understood. This little monk was probably waiting here for this object. Immediately after, Xiaohua used his Buddhist sense to take a look. However, he still couldn't see anything. In the end, he used his Dharma eyes to see that this black triangle hid a thumb-sized chess piece. It really is a chess piece. This senior is unfathomable. Xiaohua closed his Dharma eyes. He was truly convinced. Immediately after, Xiaohua bowed towards the sky. I am Bodhi. Thank you, Buddha Lord, for bestowing this treasure. Hee hee. Suddenly, a light laugh came from afar. Wasn't that the voice of the small monk? Xiaohua hurriedly released his Buddhist sense and scattered it towards that direction. Oh? Why is there a child here? Xiaohua's Buddhist sense naturally couldn't catch up with the small monk. However, 100 li away from the Buddhist sense, he saw a child who wasn't even 10 years old. He was holding a charcoal pencil and sitting cross-legged in front of a flower and tree that was taller than a person. He was drawing something on the ground in front of him stroke by stroke. The child's clothes looked shabby and several places were sewn with patches. He was also carrying a small embroidered bag on his back. Although this embroidered bag was sewn with needle and thread and rags, it was very clean. Just as Xiaohua was about to withdraw his Buddhist sense, a person who looked like a servant quickly walked over from the valley not far from the child. Seeing the child, he hurriedly shouted, Wang Bianfei, why are you here? Quick, quick, Lord Wang is looking for you. Wang Bianfei. Xiaohua was stunned and secretly said, Isn't this the Wang Bianfei that the little monk was talking about? Soon after, Xiaohua's eyes turned and he leaped into the sky and flew towards the place where Wang Bianfei was. When he flew closer, Xiaohua could already see clearly that this was a small mountain village built in the middle of several mountains. There were more than 100 families in the mountain village. At this time, some people were farming on the mountain and some people were hunting in the mountain ridge. Within the village, women were weaving and planting vegetables, washing and cleaning. There was also a group of children playing and making noise. It was a lively scene of a village. At this time, Wang Bianfei was standing in the courtyard of the largest family in the mountain village. A middle-aged man with a protruding mouth and monkey-like cheeks was saying something to him in a sharp voice. Another middle-aged man with a fat head and big ears was arrogantly sitting on a recliner not far away. He was holding a palm leaf fan in one hand and a wine pot in the other. The fat man fanned himself a few times and snorted a few times. He then stuffed the wine pot into his mouth and took a few sips. He looked very free and unfettered. Xiaohua's body was hidden in the air and he could already hear clearly. He heard the middle-aged man say, Wang Bianfei, Lord Wang called you over today because he took a fancy to your painting skills. I heard that everything you paint is vivid and lifelike. Today, I want to let you show off your skills. As he spoke, he took out a silver ingot from his bosom and said with a smile, If your painting can satisfy Lord Wang, then this silver ingot is yours. Wang Bianfei glanced at the silver ingot. His expression did not change and he did not accept the silver ingot. He only slightly nodded and said, Head butler, please tell this lowly one what to paint today. If this lowly one's painting can't satisfy Lord Wang, how can this lowly one dare to accept this silver ingot? To others, it is extremely difficult, but to you, it is very simple. The skinny butler slightly smiled and put the silver ingot back into his bosom. Wang Bianfei slightly frowned. He looked at Lord Wang who was not far away and then looked at the butler. He bit his lips and said in a low voice, Head butler, this lowly one has a question. I don't know if I should ask. There is no harm in speaking. The head butler very generously waved his hand. Although this lowly one knows how to paint, this lowly one is still small and clumsy. It is impossible for this lowly one to satisfy Lord Wang. Wang Bianfei opened his mouth and his words were mature again. If Lord Wang has any important matters, please feel free to invite the great painters in Pingxi City to do it. This lowly one knows that his painting is not worth a silver ingot. Since Lord Wang asked you to come, he naturally has his own plans. The butler looked at Wang Bianfei with some astonishment. He really did not expect Wang Bianfei, a child who was not even 10 years old, to be able to think so much. He smiled and said, "You don't have to ask so many questions. Just focus on painting." Wang Bianfei nodded and said, "This lowly one understands." Immediately after, the butler walked to the fatty's side and whispered a few words. The fatty waved his hand to indicate that he understood. The butler then brought Wang Bianfei into the backyard. The backyard was a place that was similar to a garden. A lady dressed in gorgeous clothes was sitting on a swing. The butler brought Wang Bianfei forward and pulled Wang Bianfei, saying, "Aren't you going to greet young lady?" "Yes, this lowly one greets young lady." As if he understood something, Wang Bianfei calmly bowed and greeted. "You get up." The young lady seemed to have something on her mind. She absent-mindedly waved the circular fan in her hand a few times and said. Seeing that the young lady did not pay attention to Wang Bianfei, the butler hurriedly pulled Wang Bianfei to the side and said in a low voice, "Lord asked you to come here today because he wants you to paint a portrait of the young lady. This is very important. You must paint it well. As long as Lord and young lady are satisfied, that silver ingot just now will be yours." "Yes, this lowly one understands." Wang Bianfei nodded vigorously. "This lowly one will do his best to paint it well." "Good." The butler clapped his hands and said, "It's up to you." After saying that, the butler waved his hand and a few servants who were already at the side immediately brought over a desk, rice paper, brush, ink, and other items. After the servants had arranged the items properly, a few servant girls quickly walked over and opened up the rice paper and other items and put them away. There was even a little girl who walked to the side of the desk and prepared to grind an ink stick. Wang Bianfei hurriedly waved his hand and signaled for everyone to stop. He walked to the side of the ink stone and carefully took out the ink stick. He poured some clear water into the ink stone and slowly ground it. At the same time, he frowned and stared at the young lady who was also frowning while sitting on the swing. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the entire back garden was silent except for the sound of the wind. A few servants and servant girls were puzzled, but they did not dare to make a sound. They stole glances at Wang Bianfei and then at the butler. The butler patiently waited for a while, but when he saw Wang Bianfei's reaction, he looked left and right and waved his hand to signal everyone to leave. He quietly retreated to the entrance of the garden and looked at the Lord and Wang Bianfei in the distance. "That's strange, what is this? Even if he wants to paint a portrait for this young lady, he should find an adult painter. There may not be any in this village, but there are plenty in Pingxi City. There's no reason to find this child." Xiao Hua, who was invisible in the air, felt a little strange and secretly said, "Moreover, there are only 100 or so families in this village. How can there be such a rich Lord Wang? He is 10 times or even 100 times richer than a local rich man." He looked at Wang Bianfei again. He stared straight at the young lady for more than enough time to eat a meal. Then he slightly closed his eyes and composed himself. He then turned around and walked to the front of the desk. He lifted his foot and stepped on a small stool that had been prepared earlier. He reached out and picked up a slightly thick brush from the brush washer. He dipped the brush in the thick ink of the inkstone and waved his hand to draw on the rice paper. Chapter 3465. Xiaohua was very curious and leaned over to take a look. He saw that Wang Bianfei's first few strokes were actually drawing around the entire xian paper. Not to mention a human figure, even a graffiti seemed to look better than Wang Bianfei's few strokes. However, in just a few breaths, Wang Bianfei only slightly drew on these lines, and an extremely plump woman's silhouette was revealed. Good. Xiaohua didn't know how to draw, but seeing how confident Wang Bianfei was and how he didn't even look at the woman, and how his brush seemed to have the help of the gods, he couldn't help but praise in his heart, such an intelligent child is indeed rare in this world. And at this moment, he also understood why Lord Wang didn't look for other painters. Wang Bianfei used a thick brush to outline the rough outline of the portrait. Then he picked up a small, thin brush to draw on the outline in detail. In the end, he took out a small, rough red brush from his embroidery bag and slightly modified the cheeks and lips of the portrait. Finally, he took a deep breath and took out the thickest brush from the brush washer. He dipped it in ink and touched the eyes of the portrait twice with lightning speed. Xiao Hua felt his eyes light up. The person on the xian paper seemed to have come alive. That kind of bashfulness, that kind of blurred mental journey, all of a sudden revealed the thoughts of the young lady on the swing. Good. Xiao Hua forgot that he was hiding at the side and almost called out. Fortunately, Wang Bianfei was concentrating on brewing and didn't notice. When he put away the brush, he raised his head and called out, "Housekeeper, I'm done drawing." After finishing the portrait, Wang Bianfei's high spirits immediately disappeared. He carefully put down the brush and respectfully said while standing at the side, Master. The housekeeper didn't come over and instead called out, "So fast." Lord Wang quickly ran over. The fat on his body trembled and beads of sweat dripped down. The two were originally happy, but when they walked to the front of the desk and saw the portrait Wang Bianfei drew, their faces immediately froze. "Master." Seeing this, Wang Bianfei's face also slightly changed. He said in a low voice, "Could it be? I didn't draw well?" Old Master Wang snorted coldly and didn't say anything. He glanced at the butler. At this moment, the young lady also walked over from the swing. When she saw the portrait, her expression changed greatly. There were tears in her eyes. She covered her face and quickly walked away. The steward's face changed and he said angrily to Wang Bianfei, "Don't you have eyes? My family's young miss is as beautiful as a flower. How could you paint her like this? With this painting of yours, how could the son of the deputy county magistrate take a fancy to miss?" But, Wang Bianfei was stunned. He looked at his painting in confusion and said curiously, "Master, I painted it according to Mrs. Appearance. It's exactly the same." Wang Yifei didn't understand the inside story, but Xiao Hua, who was in midair, had a clear mind. Sure enough, that housekeeper pointed his finger at the left cheek of the portrait and shouted, "My family's miss clearly doesn't have a mole here. Why did you draw one here?" "Master, I've been wronged." Wang Bianfei hurriedly defended himself. "Miss clearly has a black mole on her left cheek, and it's not small. There are 4 more on it." "Shut up." The steward slapped Wang Bianfei's face and said angrily, "Quickly, remove this black mole." "No." Wang Bianfei's face was red with 5 finger marks. His tears flowed out, but he still clenched his teeth and said, "Father said that a painter is the eyes of people. Whatever you see, you have to draw. If you fake it, you're not a painter." "Little baby." Master Wang next to him took out a gold ingot from his arms and shook it in front of Wang Bianfei's eyes. He smiled and said, "If you remove this black mole, I'll give you this gold ingot." Unfortunately, Wang Bianfei looked at the gold ingot, slightly bit his lips and shook his head. "No, I saw it, so I have to draw it, humph." Master Wang flung his sleeve and threw the gold ingot on the ground. He said coldly, "If it weren't for this black mole, I wouldn't have asked you to draw it." After saying that, he panted and left. "Wang Bianfei, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The steward looked at the gold ingot on the ground and a trace of greed flashed in his eyes. He carefully picked it up and wiped away the dust on it and said, "I know that in your family, only your mother makes a living by weaving and starching. The charcoal and paper that you use to draw every day are all exchanged by your mother's hard work every day and night. Now you only need to gently move the brush and this gold ingot is yours. It's enough for your family's expenses for 10 years. Think about these 10 years. Your mother doesn't have to work hard. Don't you think that you..." At this point, the steward didn't say anything more and looked at Wang Bianfei with confidence. Unfortunately, Wang Bianfei still shook his head. As the saying goes, don't do good because it's small, don't do evil because it's small. 1,000 miles of dike can be destroyed by an ant's nest. As long as I start to draw a fake painting and lie for the first time, I can't do it again. Pa. Without waiting for Wang Bianfei to finish speaking, The steward gave him another slap. The other half of Wang Bianfei's face turned red again. Xiaohua was slightly angry and raised his hand. But just as he was about to make a move, he frowned again. He looked left and right and asked curiously, "This Wang Bianfei should be that senior's friend despite the difference in age, right? With that senior's divine ability, it's impossible that he doesn't know about this matter. Why doesn't he make a move?" Thinking of this, Xiaohua also put down his hand and looked on with interest. "Master?" Wang Bianfei's tears fell down, feeling very wronged. Unfortunately, the steward still didn't plan to let him go. He pointed at the painting and said coldly, "Wang Bianfei, look at what you've drawn. It doesn't look like my family's young miss at all. I won't let you remove the mole. This rice paper is 1 tael of silver. You can leave after you pay the money." Wang Bianfei turned pale with fright. "Where do I have 1 tael of silver? You also didn't say that I have to pay the money if I don't draw well." "I don't care so much. Since your drawing doesn't look like it, you have to pay the money. I can draw whatever I see. How can my drawing not look like it?" Wang Bianfei argued. "How about master let the young miss compare with this painting?" Is the young miss someone you can see whenever you want?" The steward sneered. "Unless you can prove that whatever you draw looks like it, otherwise, Wang Bianfei might not be able to tell that this was a small trap, but Xiaohua understood. However, with him here, he wasn't afraid that Wang Bianfei's life would be in danger. Thus, he simply flew to the top of the wall and sat there to watch. However, after that little monk disappeared, he didn't appear again. Xiaohua released his Buddhist awareness several times, but there was no trace of him within 100 li. "Master, how do you want me to prove it?" Wang Bianfei took the bait as expected. After all, he couldn't afford to pay that tael of silver. The steward's mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile and said, "This is easy. I will invite your mother from home and let her be locked together with my family's vicious dog. As long as you can draw a tiger that scares the vicious dog, it will prove that your drawing is good. If you can't, either you let the vicious dog eat your mother, or you remove the mole from this painting." Wang Bianfei didn't think that he would suddenly drag his mother into this. His mind was in a mess. Steward ordered, "Tie up Wang Bianfei's mother and bring her here." "Yes." The nearby servants had already responded and hurriedly left. But, I have never seen a tiger before. How can I draw this?" Wang Bianfei's face turned red as he hurriedly explained. Steward flicked his sleeve and left with his head raised. "Mother!" Wang Yifei cried and stumbled as he ran out. The servants were in high spirits. Without waiting for Wang Bianfei to plead with Master Wang, they had already brought Wang Bianfei's mother over. Wang Bianfei's mother looked to be around 30 years old. However, the hair on her temples was already white and there were many wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Even that pair of eyes were slightly squinted. Clearly, she had been working very hard under the oil lamp at night. "Son, how did you offend Master Wang? Hurry up and apologize to him." Wang Bianfei's mother didn't know what happened. Seeing the Wang family's servants' ferociousness, she was already trembling in fear. The moment she entered the courtyard, she hurriedly shouted. Unfortunately, before Wang Bianfei could reply, "Woof woof," a few fierce dog barks sounded and a dog cage that was taller than a person was already carried out. Wang Bianfei's mother seemed to be extremely afraid of dogs. Upon hearing this sound, she immediately collapsed onto the ground. "Mother!" Wang Bianfei didn't seem to think that his mother would be so afraid of dogs. Because in the past, whenever he encountered dogs, it was always his mother who stood in front of him. However, at this moment, he had already forgotten that he was afraid of dogs and bravely rushed over. However, evil people were fiercer than dogs. Without waiting for him to run over, a servant blocked him. The other 2 servants even lifted up his mother and threw her into the dog cage. Chapter 3466. Xiaohua was also filled with righteous indignation as he watched from the high wall. Even though he was already a nascent soul master, he still couldn't help but want to take action when he saw such an evil thing. However, when he saw Wang Bianfei unyieldingly draw the tiger, his heart moved again. He looked at the lady in the dog cage and saw that there was no danger to her life. Moreover, the metal chain was extremely sturdy. He stopped and watched with great interest as Wang Bianfei drew the tiger. He wanted to see how Wang Bianfei's tiger would be able to scare the evil dog. Unfortunately, after a moment, Xiao Hua smiled. It was very simple. Wang Yifei's tiger was not a tiger at all. Instead, it was like a cat, an enlarged cat. Is this what it means to draw a tiger but not a cat? Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. The evil housekeeper's face was originally ugly, but when he saw Wang Yifei's tiger, he unconsciously became happy. Knowing that Wang Yifei didn't know how to draw a tiger, he had to modify the young Mrs. portrait according to his own calculations. Moreover, he also understood that his young Mrs. face was flawed. He absolutely couldn't let the painters in Pingxi City draw it. In that case, before the young Mrs. portrait was sent to the county magistrate's mansion, the county magistrate's son would already know. Although this Wang Yifei was young, he seemed to draw better than ordinary painters. His master really had to rely on this Wang Yifei. How about it? The evil housekeeper laughed. You want to scare the evil dog with this tiger? Do you want me to release the evil dog? But Wang Yifei's face turned red. I said that I can draw anything that I have seen. I have never seen this tiger before. The evil housekeeper grinned. Whether you see it or not is your business. Whether you release the dog or not is my business. Master. Wang Yifei saw that the evil housekeeper was about to raise his hand. His eyes turned and he hurriedly ran in front of Master Wang. With a plop, he knelt on the ground and said anxiously, Master, can you give me 3 days? No, 1 day I will go up the mountain. Go up the mountain? Master Wang looked at the side helplessly. Hearing Wang Yifei's pleading, he couldn't help but stare blankly. Wang Yifei shouted, I will go up the mountain to see if there is a tiger. I will come back and draw a real tiger. When old Master Wang heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't want Wang Yifei to draw a tiger. He wanted Wang Yifei to draw a portrait of his daughter. Just as old Master Wang was about to get angry, young Miss Wang came out. At this moment, young Miss Wang's face was covered with a veil. She said a few words in front of old Master Wang, then turned around and left. Old Master Wang looked at his daughter with pity. He raised his hand and said, All right, I'll give you 1 day. Go and come back quickly. If by this time tomorrow, you still can't draw a tiger that can scare the evil dogs, don't blame me. Yes, I understand. Wang Bianfei hurriedly got up from the ground and ran to his mother, shouting, Mother, wait for your son for a day, your son will definitely save you from inside. Wang Bianfei's mother did not understand what had happened, but she understood that her son wanted to go up the mountain to find the tiger. She was originally frightened by the vicious dog, but at this time, she did not know where the courage came from. She stood up from the ground and said anxiously, Son, you are not even 10 years old, how can you go up the mountain by yourself? How can you escape from the tiger's mouth? Don't worry about Mother. Mother would rather be eaten by this vicious dog than let you go up the mountain. With that, Wang Bianfei's mother walked towards the vicious dog. Wang Bianfei was scared out of his wits, but the servants next to him were nimble. They hurriedly took a few wooden forks and pressed the vicious dog that pounced on Wang Bianfei's mother to the ground. Mother! Wang Bianfei gritted his teeth and forced a smile on his face. Don't worry, boy secretly went up the mountain to draw last year. He also saw the tiger, but he did not draw it. This time, boy went up the mountain to secretly take a look. He will come back immediately after drawing the tiger. There will be no problem. But even after listening to Wang Bianfei's explanation, Wang Bianfei's mother was still not at ease. Just as she was about to say something, Wang Bianfei waved his hand and hurriedly ran out of the Wang family. He said while running, Mother, boy will be back soon, it will be very fast. After Wang Bianfei left, only a few dog barks could be heard in the Wang family's courtyard. The servants were all silent. That evil housekeeper did not expect things to develop like this. What are you waiting for? Lord Wang raised his head and shouted at the housekeeper, Why are you still not following Wang Biafei? If he really went up the mountain, how can a child like him be the tiger's opponent? Lord, don't worry. The housekeeper hurriedly smiled. Wang Biafei was just saying. This lowly one has never gone up the mountain to see the tiger. Where can he find the tiger? He probably went to the mountain and saw that he could not go up the mountain, so he naturally came back. Go quickly. Lord Wang impatiently said in anger. This is what Miss said. You can't even do such a small thing. What a fool. Yes, this lowly one will go now. The housekeeper promised and hurriedly left with 2 servants. Not long after, a servant girl hurriedly came out from the backyard. She said a few words in front of Lord Wang and hurriedly went out. Lord Wang's face showed helplessness. He waved his hand and ordered a few servants to carry Wang Biafei's mother out of the dog cage and bring her to a firewood room at the side. This miss is not bad. Xiaohua stood in the air and watched, nodding slightly. Then his figure flew up again and followed Wang Biafei, who was running in the distance. Behind Wang Biafei, there were naturally the housekeeper and a few others. However, these people chased Wang Biafei out of the village and lost him. After all, the mountain village was surrounded by fields and could go up the mountain from anywhere. Wang Biafei was also small, so who knew where he went? Housekeeper! A servant looked at the road leading up the mountain and said with a smile, Wang Biafei is only a child, how can he go up the mountain by himself? Besides, this mountain is so big, where is he going to find a tiger? Don't worry, even if he goes, he will come back in less than half a day when it's dark. You and I don't have to accompany him to run around blindly. How can I go up the mountain? Go, bring the wine and meat, I will wait here for that kid to escape back. The housekeeper ordered and sat down on a stone. The other 2 servants secretly went back. Looking at the corner of the mountain village, the servant girl who came out earlier also came out of a small courtyard. Behind her was an old hunter with white hair and beard. The servant girl returned to the Wang family's courtyard and the old hunter quickly went up the mountain. Xiaohua flew in the air while invisible, overlooking everything that happened in this small mountain village. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Who said that the Pure Land world is a paradise? Not to mention that there are wild beasts and evil dogs here, there are also a lot of evil people and evil deeds here. It is no different from the hidden immortal continent. People, won't change their nature just because they are in a different place. Clasping his hands behind his back, Xiaohua released his Buddhist sense and followed Wang Biafei up the mountain. He didn't understand why the so-called senior led him to this small mountain village and why he met Wang Biafei. However, he was also patient. It was only a day, he wanted to see how things would end in the end. This was not out of the Wang family's servant's expectation. However, this servant only guessed half of it right. This mountain was indeed big. Wang Biafei couldn't find the tiger in a day. However, what he didn't guess was that Wang Biafei didn't hesitate at all and went up the mountain by following the vague mountain path. However, this mountain was really big. Wang Biafei went straight for nearly half a day. Seeing that the sun was about to set, he was still groping in the mountain forest and didn't even see a tiger's hair. Of course, Xiaohua knew where the tiger was. However, he didn't need to remind him. The old hunter found Wang Biafei's trace and went up the mountain from the side. He even took advantage of Wang Biafei's blind groping to catch a tiger cub from the tiger's den and went to meet Wang Biafei. This was definitely an intentional chance encounter. Wang Biafei saw the old hunter. When he saw the tiger cub in the old hunter's hand, Wang Biafei hurriedly shouted, "Grandpa Zhang, did you catch a tiger cub?" "Wang family's boy, it's so late, why are you still on the mountain?" The old hunter naturally didn't reveal any trace of his whereabouts. He was very surprised and shouted, "Quickly go down the mountain, it's already late, it's too dangerous here." "Grandpa, where did you catch this tiger? Are you going back to the village?" Wang Biafei asked somewhat anxiously. The old hunter smiled and said, "Grandpa is old, how can I catch a tiger? This tiger cub was picked up by Grandpa on the road. Now, I am going to send it back to the tiger's den." "Why do you want to send it back?" Wang Biafei didn't understand. Little guy, if you don't go home, won't your mother look for you all over the village? The old hunter smiled and said, if this tiger cub is missing, won't that dumb insect look for you all over the mountain? And it is very likely that it will directly rush into our village. That will be troublesome. Hearing the old hunter mention his mother, Wang Biafei couldn't help but cry again. After all, he was still a child who was not even 10 years old. Oh, little boy, what happened to you? Are you lost? Don't worry, Grandpa will send this tiger back, and then we will go down the mountain together. The old hunter hurriedly comforted him. But Wang Biafei asked again, Grandpa, can you take me to the tiger's den? I want to see what a real tiger looks like. You don't want to live anymore. The old hunter was shocked. He was afraid that the maid who looked for him earlier didn't explain clearly, so he quickly replied, even I don't dare to go to the tiger's den. Don't forget, a tiger's nose is more sensitive than a dog's, and it can run faster than a dog. Once you get close to its den, it will immediately notice you. It will be too late for you to run away. Then, Wang Biafei hurriedly said, Grandpa, I just want to see a real tiger. It's fine if I don't get close to it. You silly child. The old hunter smiled and said, don't I have a tiger here? Although it's not a big tiger, after you see it, you can think of it as a big tiger, right? Wang Biafei was a little hesitant. Chapter 3467. The old hunter urged, little guy, if you want to see it, hurry up. I estimate that there's still more than an hour before the tiger returns to its den. By then, I'll have to send this little tiger back to its den. Okay, Grandpa, put the tiger down and let me have a good look. Wang Wanfei made up his mind. I want to draw a picture of a tiger. Not bad, child. You will definitely become a great painter in our Pingxi city. Hearing this, the old hunter finally relaxed. He put the little tiger down and sat at the side to smoke his pipe. The little tiger was much bigger than a cat, but smaller than a dog. It was furry and cute. Wang Wanfei played with the little tiger for a while, then took out a charcoal pencil and started to draw. The little tiger circled around Wang Wanfei while the old hunter watched with a smile. Wang Wanfei's drawing skills were really good. He finished drawing in a moment. However, on the rough paper, the little tiger's charmingly naive look was vivid on the paper. Where was the imposing manner of an adult tiger? Wang Wanfei looked at the tiger drawing and felt like crying. Child, didn't you draw very well? The old hunter didn't know the whole story and asked with a smile, why are you unhappy? Wang Wanfei bit his lips. His little face was gloomy like the shadow of dusk. He then asked the old hunter tentatively, Grandpa, can you tell me where the tiger's den is? I really just want to see. Without waiting for Wang Wanfei to finish, the old hunter's face changed slightly and stood up. He knocked the pipe on the rock a few times and said unhappily, Child, why do you have to go to the tiger's den? Even I don't dare to go to the tiger's den. Today, if it wasn't for Miss Wang. At this point, the old hunter realized that he had misspoken and hurriedly shut his mouth. Wang Wanfei was also stunned and asked, Grandpa, did you say Miss Wang? It was also at this moment that a gust of wind suddenly blew, and an unpleasant stench came from the foot of the mountain. Oh no! The old hunter saw the strong wind and immediately woke up. He jumped down from the rock and shouted, Child, run! The tiger is coming! Ouch! The old hunter did not expect the big tiger to come so early and follow its scent to this place. He knew better than Wang Bianfei how powerful the tigers in the mountains were. How could he not panic now? As the saying goes, when one is in a hurry, one makes a mistake. The old hunter stepped on the edge of a rock and fell to the ground. Grandpa! Wang Bianfei turned pale with fright and hurried over to support him. Although the old hunter was old, he was quite agile and immediately jumped up from the ground. However, when he stood on the ground, the old hunter's face was ghastly pale because he had sprained his ankle and it looked very serious. His ankle was visibly swollen. Run! The old hunter pushed Wang Yifei and said, I'm here, dumb insect won't chase you. No! Wang Bianfei panicked at first, but now he calmed down and said seriously, Grandpa came for me, so how can I abandon Grandpa and run away? Even if I die, I want to die in front of my grandfather. Roar. An angry tiger's roar shook the forest in the twilight. The birds were startled and flew away. The fierce wind rose again. The originally cheerful little tiger also raised its head and roared in a low voice. Run! The old hunter saw that the situation was very urgent, so he immediately pulled Wang Bianfei and ran down the mountain. The old hunter was running with a limp, and Wang Bianfei's legs were short, so the two of them couldn't run fast at all. When a huge tiger showed up from the hill, the two of them had only run a distance of several hundred feet. Seeing the big tiger, the little tiger, who was chasing after the two of them, turned around and ran towards the big tiger. The old hunter's face was pale. He grabbed Wang Bianfei's collar and ran even faster without caring about his injured leg. He hoped that the big tiger would see its child and stop chasing them. Unfortunately, the old hunter miscalculated. The big tiger roared and jumped down from the hill. It ran towards the little tiger and caught it with its mouth. Then it continued to chase after the two of them. We're going to die. That was the only thought in the old hunter's mind. However, at that moment, the old hunter's eyes lit up. There was a crack in the mountain wall that was as tall as a person. He grabbed Wang Bianfei and ran towards it without hesitation. Fortunately, the crack was just big enough for one person to enter. The inside of the crack was not too shallow either. It was about 4 feet wide. After the old hunter threw Wang Bianfei in, he squeezed in with his body sideways. Just as the old hunter entered, the tiger pounced on the crack. It slammed its claws on the crack, and the sound of rocks breaking could be heard. It was as if the entire mountain wall was shaking. The old hunter had never been so close to a tiger before. He was so scared that he sat on the ground and crawled into the crack. However, before the old hunter could take more than a few steps, he hit the rock wall and Wang Bianfei. He could not take another step forward. Roar! The tiger pounced on the crack and let out a loud roar. The stench from its bloody mouth really hit them in the face. Then, the tiger stretched out its claws from the crack and tried to grab Wang Bianfei and the old hunter. The tiger's shining claws swayed in front of Wang Bianfei's eyes. Different from the old hunter's panic, although Wang Bianfei's little face was also pale, his eyes were filled with surprise. He clenched his little hands tightly and stared at the angry tiger without blinking. Seeing that someone actually dared to look at it, the tiger became even angrier. It crazily attacked the crack, leaving deep marks on the hard rock wall. Fortunately, the tiger was not a demon and did not think of using its tail. Otherwise, the two of them would not have survived. Xiao Huan naturally hid himself not far away. Wang Bianfei and the old hunter were not in any danger, so he did not have to do anything. He just watched quietly. The big tiger roared for a whole meal. Seeing that it had no effect, it simply lay on the ground and guarded. The little tiger was also leisurely strolling by the side. At that moment, the sky was completely dark. Inside the crack, Wang Bianfei's eyes were like stars. The tiger's madness just now was deeply imprinted in his mind. He stared at the tiger outside the crack, not daring to close his eyes, for fear that he would forget the tiger's anger. However, a child was still a child after all, especially after being frightened. In less than an hour, his eyes slowly closed. He had experienced too many things today, and only a peaceful sleep was the best place for him to go. Wang Bianfei fell asleep, but the old hunter did not dare to sleep. He exercised his ankle while paying attention to the movement outside the crevice. However, the night wind was getting colder, and it was quiet outside. He could not hear the tiger's voice at all, so the old hunter gradually fell asleep. When the sun rose and the light shone into the crack, the old hunter hurriedly opened his eyes. His feet were getting more and more swollen, and he could not touch the ground at all. However, he still leaned in front of the crack and secretly peeked outside. Roar! An angry roar, followed by another black shadow. The old hunter was so scared that he hurriedly retreated. Rip! The tiger's claws tore the old hunter's lapel. The furious tiger had actually waited for an entire night. What should we do? The old hunter sat on the ground, worried because his stomach was growling and his mouth was dry. If the tiger did not leave and stayed here for a day or two, even if they did not starve to death, they would die of thirst. When the tiger roared, Wang Bianfei was also startled awake. He looked around and realized his situation. Looking at the old hunter's worried face, he thought for a while and said, "Grandpa, don't worry. I have an idea." "What idea do you have?" The old hunter looked at Wang Bianfei. He did not blame Wang Bianfei, but how could he not hate him in his heart? However, Wang Bianfei said confidently, "Grandpa, please wait." As he spoke, Wang Bianfei took out a piece of straw paper and a charcoal pencil from the embroidered bag he carefully placed on the ground. He closed his eyes slightly, then waved the charcoal pencil and drew something on the straw paper. The old hunter naturally did not believe Wang Bianfei. He did not look at him, but stared at the crack with his brows tightly knitted. No one knew what he was thinking. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Wang Bianfei stopped and put away the charcoal pencil. He looked at the drawing on the straw paper and was very satisfied. However, when he raised the straw paper, he looked at the rock wall again. He thought for a while and said a few words to the old hunter. "What? You're saying that I'm holding this straw paper? But you think that a tiger drawn on the straw paper can scare away a real tiger outside? Are you sure?" The old hunter heard and said in disbelief. Wang Bianfei smiled, "Grandpa, you can try. If it weren't for the fact that I'm short and can't be compared to a tiger, I would have tried it myself." The old hunter looked at the lifelike tiger on the straw paper. Although he did not believe Wang Bianfei's words, his heart was moved. After thinking for a while, the old hunter raised the tiger drawing and slowly walked behind the crack. As if it had heard the footsteps, the tiger pounced again. However, it was different this time. The tiger suddenly saw another tiger coming out from the crack. It was stunned at first and stared at the tiger drawing for a moment. Then, it growled a few times, grabbed the little tiger by the neck, curled its tail and ran away quickly. The old hunter's hands and feet were trembling. His ears were pricked up and he did not dare to breathe loudly. He waited for a full meal before he carefully jumped out. Looking at the mountain path that was already calm, he looked at the tiger drawing in his hand. He could not believe what had just happened. "Let's go, Grandpa." Wang Bianfei took the tiger drawing from the old hunter's hand and carefully put it away. He looked down the mountain and said firmly. The old hunter nodded. The old and the young cuddled together and slowly walked down the mountain. The housekeeper at the foot of the mountain was now very anxious. He waited at the foot of the mountain until the sky turned dark, but Wang Bianfei did not come down. When he returned to the Wang family to report, he was reprimanded by the young lady of the Wang family and was forced to go up the mountain to search. However, who dared to go up the mountain when the sky turned dark? He could only wait at the foot of the mountain with a few servants and wait until dawn to go up the mountain to search. Only then can you stand out among your peers, only then can you. Speaking to this point, Wang Bianfei didn't raise his head like before and obediently agreed. Instead, he lowered his head and only ate, not replying. Wang Bianfei's mother glanced at her son and didn't pay him any attention. She only thought that her child was starving and continued, "There's mother to take care of the family. You don't have to care too much. You can only properly learn painting. When your father was still alive, he told mother that your talent far surpassed yours. You can definitely become the most famous great painter in Pingxi City, even, mother." Wang Bianfei, who had been burying his head in eating, suddenly raised his head. He looked at his mother and said word by word, "Boy, doesn't want to learn painting anymore." What? Wang Bianfei's mother was stunned. The sewing needle suddenly pierced her finger and a bean-sized drop of blood instantly flowed out of her finger. However, she didn't seem to see it as she stared at Wang Bianfei. Wang Bianfei saw that his mother's gaze was so sharp. His eyes unconsciously flickered and he wanted to lower his head. Wang Bianfei's mother was about to get angry. However, she took a deep breath and placed her bleeding finger in her mouth to suck it. She suppressed her emotions and said indifferently, "Why don't you want to learn painting?" "Mother." Wang Bianfei was a little scared. However, looking at the broken porcelain bowl in front of him, he bit his lips and said, "Boy said it. Mother, don't be angry." Chapter 3469. Say it. You're all grown up. Mother can't possibly worry about everything for you. Wang Yifei's mother nodded and asked, "Moreover, Mother doesn't know how to paint. If you have any thoughts, you can say them. Mother will listen first. Could it be that you don't like to paint anymore?" "Mother," Wang Yifei said as he pushed the bowl to one side. He stood up and said, "Boy naturally likes to paint. However, after yesterday's incident at old Master Wang's house, Boy feels that painting alone is of no use. Even if Boy becomes a great painter in Pingxi City, like father, won't he still be unable to control his own fate?" Speaking till here, Wang Yifei stole a glance at the inner room. Although his mother had never told him how his father passed away, he more or less knew some of the things that happened in the past from the villagers. His father was probably as straightforward as him, and because of some things he had offended the influential people, right? Wang Yifei's mother was silent. How could she not know these things? But what could she do? Wang Yifei didn't know what his mother was thinking. He hurriedly explained, "Mother, perhaps you still don't know the details?" After waiting for Wang Bianfei to clearly explain the cause of the matter, he then said, "Mother, take a look." Facing a rich man from a village, this child only slightly resisted, and they took Mother away and threw Mother into a dog cage. How can they treat a person's life as their own? In the end, even if the boy risked his life and won the bet, the boy still had no choice but to give in. If the boy didn't give in, even if they didn't say anything about today's matter, it would be inevitable that they would make things difficult for us in the future. Our fish on the chopping block. Also, yesterday's matter, if it wasn't for the kind Miss Wang, not only would the matter of the painting not be left at that, even the boy's life would be in danger. It doesn't feel good to have my life in the hands of others. Wang Bianfei said very seriously, from this matter, the boy has already seen that even if the boy becomes the best painter in Pingxi City, even if the boy becomes the most famous painter in the entire Buddhist kingdom, he will still be someone else's plaything. Whatever the others ask the boy to draw, the boy has to draw. Whatever the others don't ask the boy to draw, the boy can't draw. What's the point of having such a great painter? Just like today, when the boy drew well, the Wang family rewarded him with an ingot of gold and praised him, saying that the boy was talented and was a useful person. In the future, others would give him more gold and praise. Even if they said that the boy was the best painter in history, what was the use? Fate is not in one's own hands. In the end, it is all for naught. "Son." Wang Bianfei's mother was somewhat stunned. She really couldn't think of a 10-year-old child who could think so much. "This? Who told you all this?" Wang Bianfei hesitated for a moment and said, "Less than half of it was the little monk who told me. Most of it was the boy himself." "Little monk?" Wang Bianfei's mother's expression changed greatly. She hurriedly asked, "Then, if you don't want to learn painting, what do you want to do? Don't tell me you want to become a monk?" "Mother, in this world, other than monks who have great magical powers, there are many people like monks." Wang Bianfei smiled. He knew that his mother was worried that if he became a monk, he wouldn't be able to get married, thus cutting off the Wang family's bloodline. Wang Bianfei's mother was puzzled and asked, "In this world, other than the masters in the temples, what is better than being a great painter?" "Cultivator." Wang Bianfei said without hesitation, "Mother, in this world, there is a kind of person called cultivator. Monks seem to be a kind of cultivator." Other than monks, there are also scholars and Taoists. Scholar mother has heard of them. Wang Bianfei's mother frowned, but Taoist mother has never heard of them. But mother knows that scholars are all people without the strength to truss up a chicken. Boy also doesn't know. Wang Bianfei smiled bitterly. These were all told by the little monk to the boy. "Son, these are all indiscernible things. Then what are you going to do now?" Wang Bianfei's mother wasn't moved. She still talked about the reality in front of Wang Bianfei. Wang Bianfei's gaze was firm as he replied, Since there are cultivators in this world, then the boy will definitely be able to find them. Wang Bianfei's mother smiled and said, "That's good. Mother will pack up. Let's go find them together." "Mother." Wang Bianfei immediately woke up. There were only 2 people in this family. If he left, what would his mother do? Not to mention how he would survive if he left the mountain village. If his mother was alone at home, how would she live without her son? Alas, an ideal is always an ideal. In front of reality, there is always an illusory side. A village child who is not even 10 years old wants to leave the home of an orphan and a widow to cultivate. This is simply dreaming. When he heard up to here, Xiaohua came to a sudden understanding. He finally understood why that senior from the Buddhist sect had led him here. However, he was still somewhat puzzled. Since that senior is a master from the Tantric sect, he had already attained the Buddha fruit 10,000 years ago. Then, enlightening Wang Bianfei and leading him into the Buddhist sect was simply a piece of cake. Even if Wang Bianfei reckoned that for the sake of the Wang family, he would have to marry and have children in the future. After all, the Tantric sect didn't care about this. Why did they want him to come here? Thinking like this, Xiaohua felt a chill run down his spine. "Why didn't I see you?" Hee. Xiaohua naturally knew that someone as intelligent as Wang Bianfei wouldn't casually believe him. He said with a smile, "You've never cultivated before, so how can you see I? Come, don't be afraid. I'll let you see I's methods." After saying that, Xiaohua waved his hand and sucked in the 2 people. His figure turned into the wind and flew towards the sky outside the house. How was it? Standing in the air, Xiaohua asked with a smile. Wang Bianfei supported his mother and stood in the air. His eyes were shining as he curiously looked at everything that had shrunk below his feet. Wang Bianfei's mother's face was pale. Her hands tightly held onto her son's hand, not knowing how to answer. "Go." Xiaohua once again used the wind escape technique. He suddenly rose another 100 feet and asked again, "How was it?" Wang Bianfei bit his lips and looked at his mother who had already closed her eyes. He said, Taoist master, can you go any higher?" "What's so difficult about that?" Xiaohua laughed loudly. He brought the 2 of them to the edge of the heavenly fire, wind, and lightning before stopping. Chapter 3470. Looking at the endless thunder, fire, and wind, Wang Bianfei's face flushed with excitement. He shouted, Fun! The little monk has never brought me here before. You're so awesome." Xiaohua sweated. "This is called fun." Sun, hurry back. When has Wang Bianfei's mother ever experienced this kind of situation? Her bones were already weak and her muscles were already numb. She shouted weakly. But the strange thing is, she wasn't talking to Xiaohua, but to Wang Bianfei. Wang Bianfei hurriedly replied, "Yes, mother, let's go back now." Saying this, Wang Bianfei was about to fly down. Looking at Wang Bianfei's appearance, Xiaohua smiled and watched with folded arms. "Why can't I go back?" Wang Bianfei turned pale with fright. "Nonsense, if I don't bring you down, how can you go down?" Xiaohua scolded. But Wang Bianfei opened his mouth, as if he suddenly understood something. He asked curiously, "Could it be? I'm not dreaming?" "Son, hurry back. Wang Bianfei's mother urged again. Wang Bianfei said respectfully to Xiaohua, "Taoist priest, this lowly one already knows Taoist priest's divine ability. Please send this lowly one back." "Okay, look at the changes in the surroundings. Can you comprehend something?" Xiaohua's heart moved. He thought of some of his comprehension from a long time ago. He nodded and said, "Even if there isn't, you can see if you're dreaming or not." Yes, this lowly one understands. Wang Bianfei didn't dare to be negligent. Hearing Xiaohua's words, he looked around. The earth came closer from afar, the village grew bigger from small. When Wang Bianfei returned to his house, his face was still filled with confusion. He still didn't dare to believe whether he was dreaming or not. Wang Bianfei's mother also sat there blankly, looking like she didn't dare to believe. Wang Bianfei, I heard what you said outside the house earlier. What you said was very good. Your own fate must be controlled by your own hands. Xiao Hua said indifferently, even if you don't have the ability to control it now, you must have an unyielding heart. How big the heart is, how big the world is. I was born in the Dao sect and was similar to you from a young age. We were both born in a small village. I may not be able to move mountains and create seas, but I am still capable of causing storms and clouds. Are you willing to be my disciple in name? Taoist priest. Without waiting for Wang Bianfei to speak, his mother cried out, Please don't take my son away, he's still young, he, don't worry, sister-in-law. Xiao Hua said with a smile, I won't take him away for the time being, and I won't forbid him from getting married in the future either. If he is willing to enter I's tutelage, I will only temporarily pass on the mnemonic chant and cultivation method to him, and wait until he cultivates to a certain level in the future. By then, not only will sister-in-law live a long life, even your son will be able to marry a celestial immortal for you. Really? Wang Bianfei's mother couldn't believe it. Xiao Hua almost said, Monks don't lie. When Wang Bianfei heard that he could prolong his mother's lifespan, his eyes lit up. He nodded his head firmly and said, Since Taoist priest says so, then I am willing to be your disciple. It's just, what is a disciple in name? A disciple in name is to first remember your name, and wait until you have succeeded in your cultivation, only then can I truly accept you as my disciple. Xiao Hua explained, If your cultivation isn't good, I won't accept you as my disciple. Then, how many disciples does Taoist priest have? This. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly, I currently have a few disciples in name like you, but I don't have any true disciples. Then, what are the rules for becoming Taoist priest's disciple? Wang Bianfei looked somewhat disappointed and asked again. Xiao Hua slightly scratched his head, thought for a moment and said, For the time being, there are no rules. Since you are just a disciple in name, I will first give you some cultivation method to cultivate. I can't stay here for long, so I will first pass on some cultivation method to you and give you some pointers. Everything can wait until later. Can't stay for long? Wang Bianfei was somewhat puzzled by Xiao Hua's words, but he didn't dare to ask more, and very cleverly claimed to be a disciple and asked, Then, can disciples still paint? Why can't you? Xiao Hua said with a smile, Actually, Master also knows Confucian cultivation methods. In the future, if you are willing, you can also cultivate. According to Master's knowledge, the 6 arts of Confucian cultivation are etiquette, music, archery, imperial, calligraphy, and mathematics. Calligraphy includes painting. Disciple Wang Bianfei pays respect to Master. Wang Bianfei no longer dared to neglect, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing. On the side, Wang Bianfei's mother was somewhat surprised. She didn't expect Wang Bianfei to be so decisive, and suddenly felt somewhat at a loss. Xiao Hua raised his hand and helped Wang Bianfei up, and said with a smile, Since you have entered my sect, you are my disciple. With me here, I will definitely not let you be bullied. Saying this, Xiao Hua smiled at Wang Bianfei's mother and said, Sister-in-law, I will borrow your child for 3 days, after 3 days, I will bring him back. These are some of my Taoist priest's spiritual dates, taste them first. Remember, you have to eat them bit by bit, don't swallow them all in one bite. Taoist priest. Wang Bianfei's mother seemed to still want to say something, but Xiao Hua had already turned into a cool breeze and fled far away. Only a few dates that looked dazzling with golden light were left on the table. When Wang Bianfei opened his eyes, he was on the mountain ridge beside the mountain village. From the top of the mountain, he could still see his family's house. Seeing that he was not far from home, Wang Bianfei's heart felt a bit more at ease, and said with a smile, Master, you are very good to disciple, wanting to quickly teach disciple divine abilities. Disciple is very grateful. But next time, can you properly talk to mother first? If his disciple is on the mountain, he won't be too worried in his heart. But Xiao Hua nodded, opened his mouth and said a few words, then turned his head and said with a smile, Master has already told your mother. Thank you, Master. Wang Bianfei was very happy. Master is much better than that little monk. That little monk only knows how to play chess with disciple. Shoo! Xiaohua hurriedly stopped. That is a senior of the Buddhist sect. Don't treat him lightly. Senior? Him? Wang Bianfei almost laughed out. Playing chess every day, he still has to play chess. What's senior? Forget it, let's not talk about others. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Master's time is limited, I have to leave this place soon. How about I teach you a simple cultivation technique first? Master can leave this place? Wang Bianfei asked very inexplicably. Xiaohua looked up and down, also puzzled. Why can't I leave? What do you mean by that? However, Xiaohua did not take Wang Bianfei's words seriously. How could a country child know the divine abilities of a nascent soul master? Immediately, Xiaohua took out a Dao sect entry cultivation technique and taught it to Wang Bianfei. What made Xiaohua surprised was that this Wang Bianfei was smarter than Lu Yi. After only listening to it a few times, he already understood it, and after asking a few difficult questions, he could already practice. Damn it! This aptitude, isn't it too monstrous? Xiaohua was really speechless. He originally wanted to use 3 days to teach. Who knew that it would be finished in just half an hour? How could he not be depressed? Disciple, you practice, see if you can detect the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Xiaohua weakly instructed. Wang Bianfei was very surprised. He smiled and said, Master, you didn't make a mistake, right? How can there be spiritual energy of heaven and earth here? I told you to try, just try, Xiaohua said unhappily. Of course, Wang Bianfei did not understand. He could only do as he was told, but after a full 2 hours, he replied with a crying face, Master, disciple can't sense it. And Xiaohua slightly nodded. He thought for a moment and said, Disciple, close your eyes. If there is any abnormal movement, don't use your eyes to resist. Let Master take a look for you. Finished speaking, Xiaohua waved his hand. That white bone soul bridge appeared in his hand. Wang Bianfei looked at this bone ball carved out of white bone very strangely. He obediently closed his eyes. Xiaohua waved his hand. The soul bridge floated in the air. Then the space between Xiaohua's eyebrows flashed with a dark green brilliance. But just as this dark green seal text appeared, with the space between Xiaohua's eyebrows as the center point, strands of space cracks covered the entire space faster than lightning. Whether it was Wang Bianfei, the mountain peak, or even the entire Pure Land world turned into fragments in these cracks. What's going on? Seeing these countless fragments disappear along with countless memories, Xiaohua was dumbfounded, and then Xiaohua's eyes became dizzy, but before he could wake up from the dizziness, a fragrance came from his mouth, a very natural reaction, a very familiar feeling. Xiaohua did not even need to open his eyes. He whispered in his heart, Red Dawn. However, when Xiaohua called out Fairy Hong Xia's name in his heart, he immediately woke up. He was in the Pure Land world. It was 8 poles away from the Dawn Rain continent. Even if Fairy Hong Xia's cultivation was 10 times stronger, she would not be able to chase him here. Then, other than Fairy Hong Xia, who else could be beside Xiaohua? Xiaohua opened his eyes as if he was in a dream. In front of him was Xian's flushed face. Moreover, on those thin eyelids, faint red lines were clearly visible. Without waiting for Xiaohua to think about what happened, he suddenly came here from the small mountain village in the Pure Land world. The slightly trembling eyelids in front of him suddenly opened. In those close eyes, first there was a kind of sweetness, then there was astonishment, and after a few breaths, it turned into shyness and anger. In the end, all the eyes turned into a mass of golden light. Then Xian urged her body to escape from Xiaohua's embrace, but at this moment, the two of them finally saw their situation. Xiaohua and Xian were intimately hugging each other, face to face. Xiaohua's forehead was against Xian's forehead, Xian's eyes were against Xiaohua's eyes. Even if the two of them tried their best to tilt their heads back, they were still tightly huddled together. Chapter 3471. Their auras had never been so close before. Xiaohua slightly tilted his head. trying his best to avoid looking at Xian's face. He hurriedly asked, Xian, what's going on? Little monk, Xian's tone was extremely cold. She also tilted her head, as if she hated Xiaohua very much. Can't you see for yourself? How would I know what happened? While speaking, Xian also looked up and down. See. Looking around, Xiaohua unconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air. This was a space of nothingness. The entire space seemed to be boundless. In this space, there were two kinds of colors. One was the part where Xiaohua and Xian were. It was completely pitch black. The endless black gas mixed with the black flame was surging violently like the sea. The other was pure blue. It was above Xiaohua's head. This pure blue was not the sky blue of the space outside, but a kind of crystal clear blue of water. Moreover, this blue water was different from the black gas. It took the shape of a jade and flowed above the entire space like a fountain. Not only did it cover the entire sky above the black gas, even the boundless distance was filled with a kind of blue water. As for Xiaohua and Xian, they were at the intersection of this water blue and pitch black. After Xiaohua finished looking around, he hurriedly lowered his head. He saw that his entire body was bound by strands of black gas. This black gas was mixed with black flames. Wasn't this the demonic gas he was extremely familiar with? Damn it, how can there be demonic gas? Xiaohua was puzzled. What is this place? Didn't you already take your father's flying sword and leave? Why did you suddenly appear here? That's not right, you called me little monk? Suddenly, Xiaohua distinguished from the appellation. How could Xian, who had just escaped, still call him little monk? Even if she didn't call him Xiao Lang, young master was already catchy. Your father just turned into a flying sword. Xian angrily said, You're a Buddhist disciple, don't tell me you don't even know about illusion arrays. Illusion array? Xiaohua was stupefied, completely stupefied. He knew about illusion arrays, but he didn't think that illusion arrays could actually become real. Everything that had happened to him seemed to be vivid in his mind. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed to be real. Xian didn't say anything. Everything that happened in the profound water palace might have been his own wishful thinking, but what about the little monk, Wang Bianfei, and everything that happened to Wang Bianfei? Could it be that everything was what he was thinking? Xian gazed at Xiaohua, who was hugging her tightly, and she said furiously, We fell into an illusion formation as soon as we entered the Dark Water Palace. If my guess is correct, then this is an illusory formation created by the demon Qi. Everything that has happened since we entered the profound water palace is an illusory formation. Xiaohua frowned slightly and asked curiously, How can you be so sure? Why don't you say that this is the illusory array? Or perhaps, you and I haven't escaped from the illusion array yet? When Xian heard this, she didn't refute and said, That's right. I can't deny that what we're seeing right now is also an illusion. Then what should we do? Xiaohua was hugging Xian with both hands. He couldn't pinch his thigh even if he wanted to. He even felt that even if this was an illusion array, pinching his thigh would definitely hurt because this wasn't a dream. However, he could vaguely confirm that everything in front of him was probably real because the injuries to his internal organs had appeared again. Let's break free first. Xian said helplessly, Don't tell me you want to hug me for the rest of your life? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Although the immortal artifact has the ancient array to provide vitality, it must be consumed. Now, whether it's an immortal artifact or a demon artifact, I'm afraid that it has reached the point of exhaustion. At this point, does female benefactor know what this immortal artifact is? Xiaohua reminded, especially, does female benefactor know how to get out of here? If this one knew, would this one still stand here and talk nonsense with you? Xian said with a bitter smile, If we get out, even watching the sunset on the banks of the Sage River would be more interesting than here, right? Xiaohua's face was bitter. He raised his head to look at the blue jade, then lowered his head to look at the vast demon Qi. He sighed and said, Then what should we do? Rumble. Right at this moment, in a place high up in the sky, where Xiaohua's gaze and divine sense could not reach, a series of rumbling sounds suddenly came. Following that rumbling sound, the jade above the two people's heads rapidly shrank. At the same time, the demon Qi under their feet rose like a rising tide. Speaking of Guzhen, his figure easily passed through the blue halo. His eyes were filled with brilliance, and he unconsciously closed them. When he opened his eyes and saw the scene in front of him, he was shocked. Because in front of him was a blue space. In this space, there were tens of thousands of jade, one set on another, one connected to another. The entire jade seemed to be one, but if one looked carefully, each strand of blue was a jade. Guzhen released his Buddhist sense. With his Buddhist sense in the lotus realm, he could not see the true appearance of the jade. Even when his Buddhist sense reached its limit, he could not see the end of this space. Moreover, when he turned back to look at the arch bridge he came from, there was already no trace of it. He was just standing in the void. When the heavenly king entered the space, countless heavenly maidens danced in the air, countless heavenly flowers fell, and countless heavenly dragons appeared amidst thousands of Sanskrit chants. Seeing this, Guzhen was wild with joy. The jade beads clearly said that with this Buddhist secret technique, he could see the vision of him attaining Buddhahood. In other words, this heavenly king must be his Buddha body after he attains Buddhahood. The heavenly maidens coming to congratulate him was also the grand scene of him attaining Buddhahood in the future. Heavenly King. I'm actually a heavenly king after attaining Buddhahood. This is unimaginable. Guzhen screamed in his heart. When he heard the words of the heavenly dragons, he thought that if he attained Buddhahood, he would only be a Jialan. He didn't expect that he would be a heavenly king. This was really beyond his imagination. Amitabha. The heavenly king looked exactly like Guzhen. He stood in the air with his palms together and chanted, "This poor monk greets the great monk." Guzhen hurriedly returned the greeting and said uncomfortably, "Amitabha, this disciple greets the heavenly king." "No need to be so polite." The heavenly king said with a smile, "You and I are one. It's enough to call me great monk." Guzhen didn't even dream that he could be called a heavenly king or great monk. He was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He said with a smile, Yes, this poor monk greets the great monk." "Great monk, are you ready?" The heavenly king's Buddha light shone brightly. In a moment, he was as tall as Guzhen's golden body. The heavenly king glanced at the flag not far away and said with a smile, "Now is the most crucial moment for you and me. If I succeed, this poor monk will attain Buddhahood in the future. If not, you won't even be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. This poor monk understands." Guzhen's eyes had turned blood red. He shouted fanatically, "This poor monk will definitely attain Buddhahood." "Good as you wish." The heavenly king also had the feeling of looking down on the world. How could this be the demeanor of a Buddhist heavenly king? As the heavenly king's voice fell, the lotus platform under his feet turned into a ball of Buddha light and rushed to the other side of the flag. Although there was an extremely strong deterrence around the flag, it didn't disappear under the Buddha light. Guzhen didn't dare to delay and hurriedly urged the auspicious cloud. However, when he was only 20 feet away from the flag, he couldn't move forward anymore because the deterrence was like the sand in the deep sea. It drowned his mouth and nose. He couldn't fly half a step forward at all. Seeing that his heavenly king golden body easily crossed the flag and went to the same position as him, the fervor in his heart was even hotter than the scorching sun at noon. Seeing that the heavenly king was in position, he raised his hand and took out a few blood-red relics from his bosom. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of Buddhist light, and those relics all went into his stomach. In an instant, a rolling red cloud rushed out of Guzhen's golden body and completely enveloped him. Within the red cloud, Guzhen's face twisted in pain. The muscles on his face trembled violently. Coupled with his blood-red eyes, he wasn't much different from a demon. "Rise, Gu Zhen endured the torment of karma and reached out his hand to slap the top of his head. Puff! Another cluster of Buddha's light mixed with blood red spurted out from the top of Gu Zhen's head and turned into a Buddha's palm the size of half an acre in the air. As the Buddha palm condensed and expanded, the golden light around Gu Zhen suddenly decreased. The red cloud also disappeared.